Chapter 1680. The inner courtyard of the city lord's mansion was heavily guarded, with a sentry every 3 steps and a sentry every 5 steps. Jun Changshao followed a tall and sturdy general in. Looking at the well-trained soldiers, he muttered in his heart, as expected of the imperial family. Their battle formation is really big. He was a little surprised when the city lord informed him that the royal family of the empire had come. After all, he had only treated patients for a few days in the Scarlet Hell world. How did the news spread to the distant imperial capital? Could it be that there were also patients? Thinking of this kind of disease that made it easier to get infected with the more firestones one absorbed, Jun Changshao immediately understood. Mr. Jun, as the general walked, he reminded him, "Please don't spread the news of our visit." Understood. Jun Changshao could see that the warriors in the city were living as usual, which meant that the royal family of the empire had secretly come. Ta! The general stopped outside the room and cupped his hands. "Young master, Mr. Jun is here. Please." A slightly weak voice sounded. Although Jun Changshao didn't understand medicine, he could tell that the person who spoke was definitely sick. "Please." The general waved his hand. Jun Changshao bluntly pushed the door open and entered, only to see a gentle and beautiful woman inside. She was sitting in an armchair, her face pale and her eyes dull. She squeezed out a smile with difficulty, looking very pitiful. "This is the royal family of the Blue Waves Empire?" Jun Changshao muttered in his heart. "A sudden visit." The woman said, "Please forgive me, Mr. Jun." Although her voice was weak, there was nobility in her speech. It could be seen that not only did she have a high status, but she also had a very high education. Jun Changshao sat on the chair that was obviously prepared for him and cupped his hands. "How should I address you?" "Euphia." The woman seemed to be a little strenuous to speak. She simplified the red tape and introduced herself very straightforwardly. "Eldest princess of the Blue Waves Empire." Princess. This identity was a little big. Jun Changshao got up and pretended to be respectful. "This commoner Jun Chaoshui greets your highness." In other people's territory, he naturally had to follow the procedures. What's more, whether or not he could make a lot of money depended on this royal customer. It was no problem to be humble. Then be humble. The system roared. "Why are you called Jun Chaoshui?" "Of course." Euphia said with a bitter face, "My Blue Waves Empire is already at dusk. It is not worthy for Mr. Jun, this kind of eccentric person, to salute." Jun Changshao was stunned. Although Blue Waves Empire only existed in name, but when all was said and done, it was still the ruler on the surface. Now that even the eldest princess looked down on him, the royal family was truly a coward. "Your Highness." Jun Changshao asked, "Are you here for treatment?" "Not bad." Euphia found it more and more strenuous to speak, so she paused for a moment after saying those 2 words before continuing, "I heard that Mr. Jun can eradicate the fire poison incurable disease, so I specially came to seek medical treatment." Jun Changshao said, "The princess doesn't seem to have contracted the fire poison. That's because I used some kind of special medicinal pill to suppress it. Although it stopped the spread of the poison, the consequence was that my body was weak all year round," Euphia said. "I see." Jun Changshao understood and immediately took out a pill. "Saving people is like putting out a fire. Princess, please quickly take this and completely get rid of the fire poison." Euphia had already heard about this kind of magical medicinal pill. Since she came from the imperial capital to seek medical treatment, she naturally wouldn't doubt it. She immediately took it and threw it into her mouth. The pill merged into her body, and the fire spirit power it emitted cleared the fire poison as easily as crushing dry weeds and smashing rotten wood. Euphia's spirit gradually improved, and her lifeless eyes also became clear. As the princess of the empire, there was nothing to say about her appearance, but because she was plagued by illness all year round, she looked very pale and weak. Now that the fire poison was dispelled, she immediately recovered some beauty. As for how beautiful she was, there was no need to describe it, because in Jun Changshao's eyes, women were only tall, short, fat, and thin, and then, there was no difference. As expected. Euphia stood up and said excitedly, Mr. June's medicinal pill can eradicate the fire poison incurable disease. The medicinal pill that your highness took was refined by June with more medicinal herbs, so you need to pay 2,000 first-class fire stones, June Changshao said. Seeing that she has a noble status, you immediately raise the price. The system said, profiteer. June Changshao defended himself in his heart, if it was a commoner, I would definitely give it to her for free, but this is the princess of the empire. Her life is so precious. Is it a loss to give her 2,000? Euphia said, I didn't bring so many first-class fire stones, how about? She paused and smiled, follow me to the imperial capital, and I will double the compensation. Fuck. If you don't have money, why do you have to treat your illness? This. June Changshao said, this is a small business. He wanted to say that he didn't accept credit, but he felt that it was wrong and immediately said sanctimoniously, the medicinal pill that your highness took used too many medicinal herbs. If there are no fire stones, I'm afraid it will be difficult for me to continue refining and treating others. The meaning was very simple. He had to pay. From this, it could be seen that Gou Sheng was sometimes very stingy. There are many medicinal herbs in the palace's medicinal herb warehouse. After Mr. June goes, you can choose whatever you want, Euphia said. This, General Che. Euphia clapped her hands. Creak. The burly general walked in and said, I'm here. Euphia said, take Mr. June to the imperial capital immediately. Take good care of him on the way and don't let any accidents happen. Yes. General Che accepted the order and looked at June Changshao. He cupped his hands and said, Mr. June, please. June Changshao's expression became interesting. He had already seen that this woman didn't want to go back on her word, but deliberately took him back to the imperial capital. Could it be that she liked him? Bah! The system really couldn't help it. June Changshao roared, what I'm thinking is, did she take a fancy to my medicinal pills and plan to lock me up in the forbidden area of the imperial palace and then become a tool for refining pills? He guessed right. This kind of fire poison terminal disease had been rampant in the Scarlet Hell world for a long time and had become a problem that the medical world had never been able to solve. Suddenly, someone could cure it, so it must be controlled immediately. For example, Gou Sheng returned to Earth as a powerhouse. As long as he revealed a little bit of his cultivation, he would immediately be locked up in a research institute and undergo a comprehensive scientific dissection. Thud, thud, thud. Outside the city lord's mansion, a few carriages left. City Lord Wang stood at the door and watched them gradually disappear. He thought to himself, Mr. June is going to have a meteoric rise. However, the person involved was sitting in a cage-like carriage at the moment. He broke down and said, Your Highness, June has no objection to going to the imperial capital, but you don't have to lock me up. I'm afraid you'll run away, no. Euphia hurriedly changed her words. Mr. June, don't misunderstand. This is my personal carriage. There are high-level formations around it to prevent assassination. June Changshao was speechless. This woman was still polite and reasonable just now, but after recovering from her illness, she was simply unreasonable. In fact, with Gou Sheng's strength, he could break the carriage with a raise of his hand. The reason why he sat in it obediently was because he wanted to go to the imperial capital. After all, there were more royal families there, and it was definitely a heaven for making money. A few days later, June Changshao jumped down from the prison carriage and looked at the city walls that protected the imperial capital. The ground leading to the city was extremely muddy. The corner of his mouth twitched. This is the center of an empire. In the eyes of many kingdoms, the fact that the Blue Waves Empire still has an imperial capital is already a great gift from them, Euphia said. June Changshao noticed that when this woman spoke, her hands were tightly clenched. There was anger and unwillingness in her bright eyes, so he secretly said, This woman is not simple. She has her own ideas. The system said, In my opinion, the host is not simple. The people he meets are not simple. Chapter 1681. In Jun Changxiao's imagination, the center of an empire must be magnificent and majestic, but in the end, it was broken bricks and tiles, and even the roads were full of potholes. It was completely in disrepair for a long time. The most speechless thing was that after walking into the imperial city, there were almost no pedestrians on the main street. It looked empty. Mr. Jun should be very disappointed, right? Yu Fia said. Yes. Jun Changxiao said frankly, very disappointed. This was not an imperial city at all, it was like a slum. Yu Fia said, the major kingdoms have left one after another. My Kanglan Empire can only control this city now. Because there is no financial income, it has not been repaired for hundreds of years. No subjects. Only tens of thousands of people, many have left. Jun Changxiao was silent. He knew that the Kanglan Empire already existed in name, but he did not expect it to be so miserable. There was only a dilapidated imperial city. Wait a minute. The imperial city was already so poor, and the imperial palace's medicinal warehouse still had medicinal herbs? Princess. Jun Changxiao said weakly, can you take out 2,000 first-grade fire stones? First-grade fire stones were equivalent to Dao stones in the upper realm. For such a destitute imperial family to take it out, it felt unreliable. Is second grade enough? No. Jun Changxiao had already done tests during this period of time. Only the energy contained within a first-grade fire stone could drive a warship. I'm sorry. Yu Fia said with shame, I only have second-grade and third-grade fire stones, can I use them to replace first-grade fire stones? Jun Changxiao wanted to say no, but seeing that she was the princess of an empire but lived in a poor imperial city, he took pity and said, yes. Thank you. Yu Fia forced a smile on her face, but her heart was incomparably bitter. Born in the imperial family, she should have lived a life of luxury, but in the end, she could not even take out the money to see a doctor. How miserable was this? Princess. Jun Changxiao said seriously, bringing me to the imperial city, I'm afraid there is another purpose. Go Sheng's eyes were not sharp, and he did not release any martial arts aura around him. However, he inexplicably made Yu Fia absent-minded and even made her feel an enormous pressure. She lowered her head and said, I hope to obtain Mr.'s help to make Blue Wave's empire rise again. Jun Changxiao's mouth twitched. I'm just a medicine seller. What ability do I have to help the empire rise? It was undeniable that with Go Sheng's strength, it would be no problem for him to sweep through the Scarlet Hell realm. He didn't even need to do anything. He could just send the 11 warships docked outside, and his disciples alone would be enough to beat the major kingdoms. However, how could he interfere with other people's internal affairs? To put it bluntly, Jun Changxiao treated himself as an outsider. He drifted away from Jianghu and did not care about Jianghu matters. This was Jianghu. Moreover, even if they had sufficient energy, it would take at least a few years to reach the astral spirit world. Who knew how many planes they would pass by on the way? Did they have to help the weak all the time? I'm sorry. Jun Changxiao said tactfully, I'm just a commoner, and I only know how to refine pills. It's difficult for me to provide help to the princess. Yu Fia said, Mr.'s pill can eradicate the fire poison incurable disease. Many families, forces, and even the nobles and ministers have suffered greatly. If you can cure them, it will definitely help my Blue Wave's empire rise. Jun Changxiao understood. This woman wanted to use his pill to rope in the major forces. The idea was not bad. However, she was too naive. Jun Changxiao had not been in the Scarlet Hell realm for long, but he already had enough understanding of the situation. Just the kingdoms that had separated were no less than dozens. Even if this woman had the idea of turning the tide, it would definitely be extremely difficult to implement. Moreover, how could the various vassals watch the imperial family of the Blue Wave's empire rise? Your Highness. Jun Changxiao said, this kind of thing should not be done by a woman. It should be done by the emperor and the prince of the Blue Waves Empire. Father is imprisoned, and both of my brothers were killed. Speaking of this, Euphia could no longer control her tears. Where are the other members of the imperial family? The major kingdoms do not allow healthy people to exist in the imperial family. Because I am a woman and have been infected with diseases all year round, I was lucky to survive, Euphia said. Jun Changshao was silent. Was there any difference between the imperial family and the nobles being destroyed? The major kingdoms were fighting each other to the death. When someone completely unified the plain, the Blue Waves Empire could officially withdraw from the stage of history. The imperial palace was very big, but because of the overgrown weeds, it looked quite lonely. Occasionally, a few soldiers could be seen patrolling, but they were completely listless. Jun Changshao walked all the way and said with emotion, Your Highness, to put it bluntly, with the current state of the Blue Waves Empire, it is completely impossible for you to turn the tide. That's right. Euphia stopped and said, It was impossible before, but now that Mr. is here, it is possible. Jun Changshao shook his head and said, I can only cure diseases, but I can't cure people's hearts. Of course, the pill could help the nobles recover, but why would they help the Blue Waves Empire rise for this reason? Mr. Euphia said, Please follow me. The two walked to the forbidden area of the imperial palace and stopped in front of a sealed hall. The words Future Pavilion were written on it. Future Pavilion? Jun Changshao was puzzled. What do you mean? The ancestor of my Blue Waves Empire was able to unify the Scarlet Prison world because of the help of an expert. Before he left behind 20 maps to deduce. Among them, 23 have come true, and only one map has not been solved until now. Oh? Jun Changshao was quite surprised. Is it so magical? Mister, please. Creak. As if it had been closed for too long, when the door was pushed open, a burst of dust and a rotten smell floated in. Jun Changshao walked in, and the special array inside was activated, illuminating the dark environment. The scale of this hall was not small, and the walls were outlined with ink paintings with small annotations. The general idea was that something would happen in a certain era. Blue Waves Calendar Year 1021, strange beasts will appear in the east. Blue Waves Calendar Year 2451, Cloud Sky Kingdom will have civil strife. Blue Waves Calendar Year 3425, Jun Changshao looked as he walked until he stopped in front of the 24th map. His expression gradually stiffened because the content was written, Blue Waves Calendar Year 12020, Zunwu City will have a great expert who can cure the fire poison terminal disease, help the empire collapse, and save the royal family. Mr. Euphia walked over and said, This is the only map that did not come true. I believe you now understand why I brought you to the imperial capital. Jun Changshao didn't say anything. Instead, he carefully examined the inkwash painting. The shock in his heart was even more intense. This was because the painting depicted a warship floating in the sky, and it depicted tens of thousands of people kneeling outside the imperial capital. 1, 2, 3, Go Sheng counted one by one, and the expression on his face stiffened again because the warships in the painting just happened to correspond to his 11 warships. First, it predicted the cure of the fire poison terminal disease. Then, it predicted 11 warships floating above the imperial capital. It was definitely not a coincidence. Put on. At this time, Euphia knelt on the ground and begged with tears streaming down her face, Mr. Jun must be the Almighty mentioned in the deduction diagram. Please save my Blue Waves Empire and save the millions of common people in the flames of war. Whoosh! A gust of wind blew, blowing away Jun Changshao's gray coat, revealing his imposing figure. The mask on his face was blown away, revealing his extraordinary heroic face. Princess. Jun Changshao said with his back facing her, Jun, if you help the empire collapse and save the royal family, can you give me a first-class fire stone as a reward? Mister, you can have as many as you want. Whoosh! Euphia was helped up by Jun Changshao. Jun Changxiao's voice rang out from the main hall, echoing throughout the imperial capital. I will help you with this matter. Chapter 1682. The wind definitely couldn't blow off the gray coat, let alone the face-changing mask. The reason why it fell was obvious, that Jun Changxiao did it on purpose. In fact, when he saw the imperial palace in such dire straits, Go Sheng was moved by compassion. He was helpless. There was no good excuse. After all, his character was a money grubber. If he suddenly helped a woman, he would definitely be labeled as someone who forgets his friends for love. It was difficult to be a man. It was even more difficult to be the protagonist of this book. Just when Jun Changxiao was in a dilemma, he saw the deduction map and immediately realized that he was destined to come to the Scarlet Prison world. Since that was the case, he might as well be the savior. Anyway, he was already familiar with this matter. He could help. He couldn't lose his character. After the matter was done, he had to get benefits. Indeed. The Blue Waves Empire was now very poor. Euphia said that he could have as much as she wanted, or it was a stopgap measure. But if he helped her integrate the major kingdoms, would they still lack money and resources? The system gave a more reasonable explanation from its own point of view. The host is sticking to the bottom line and doesn't dare to rob. Now that the princess is kneeling down and begging, it just gives you an excuse to accumulate wealth. Get lost. Jun Changxiao cursed. The system returned to the topic. List all the major events that will happen 10,000 years later. Could it be that the person who left the deduction map can predict the future? Indeed. Jun Changxiao said, that's incredible. From the words written above, it was clear that it was talking about him. The time and place were calculated accurately without any mistake. The expert who assisted the ancestor of Blue Waves Empire to establish outstanding meritorious service, either his strength was incomparably valiant, or he came from the future. Mr. Jun. After receiving the reply, Euphia was overjoyed and said, the two nearby kingdoms still have respect for the Blue Waves Empire. Mr. Jun can go and treat them, persuade them to help, and then destroy them one by one. Jun Changxiao was speechless. Did this woman really think that she could save the country by treating illnesses? Young and naive. Princess, Jun Changxiao turned around and said, since I have decided to help you, there is no need to go through so much trouble. Mr. Jun, you, seeing his appearance become younger, Euphia's expression gradually became sluggish. Sigh. As expected, he couldn't show his handsome appearance. At this moment, Euphia said, my hair is crooked. Previously, when he fought against the patriarch of the 10 great immortal sects in the Sect of all times, his hair loss relapsed. Therefore, after leaving the upper realm, Jun Changxiao always wore a magically modified wig. Just now, when he shook off his coat and mask, he used too much force, causing his hair to be a little messy. Princess. General Che hurriedly walked in, not caring about Jun Changxiao's presence. His eyes flashed with anger as he reported, the various kingdoms have sent people again. Why are you here again? Euphia frowned. These kingdoms had always been keeping an eye on the royal family and would come to harass them every now and then. She was already used to it. Jun Changxiao said, they should be here to look for Jun, how so? It's quite simple. Even with the princess's current situation, she was able to learn that Jun could cure the fire-poison terminal illness. Don't the other kingdoms have spies in the honorable martial city? You have a point, sir. In fact, Euphia was able to rush over from the imperial capital as soon as possible because she completely believed in the deduction map's prophecy. Therefore, she had always been paying attention to the honorable martial city. As for the city lord, he was also one of the few who was loyal to the royal family. In the palace hall. To describe it in an idiom, it was a house with 4 bare walls. The ambassadors of the various kingdoms stood on both sides proudly with their heads held high and chests puffed out. They could not wait to raise their heads to the sky. Over the years, the Scarlet Hell realm had been in constant wars, and the various kingdoms were at loggerheads with each other. Therefore, these representatives naturally did not like each other. Everyone. Euphia walked out from the side door and sat on the emperor's throne that only her father could sit on. This action immediately stunned the envoys from all over the world. Princess. One of them said indifferently, since ancient times, only the highest ruler of the empire is qualified to sit on the throne. I'm afraid it's inappropriate for you to sit on it. This was considered tactful. Another ambassador next to him sneered and said, could it be that the princess wants to usurp the throne and replace the emperor? The emperor has been imprisoned outside by you traitors. As the saying goes, a kingdom cannot be without a ruler for a day. How can the princess, who has the emperor's blood, not be qualified to sit on the throne? Who is it? Everyone turned around and saw a man in white about 20 years old walking in from outside the hall. He leaned against the door with a smile on his face that deserved a beating. Euphia, who was still a little flustered, immediately calmed down when she saw Mr. It was Jun Changxiao's suggestion to sit on her father's throne. Because the easiest way to help the empire and the royal family was about to fall was to appoint a new emperor, invite the leaders of the various kingdoms, and ask them if they were willing to submit. To win over the nobles with treatment, not to mention whether it would succeed, at least it would be very troublesome. Therefore, Gou Sheng did not have time to play. Now, he would do it as simply and roughly as possible. All those who were not willing to submit would be made obedient. Boy! An ambassador coldly shouted, who are you? Ta! Jun Changxiao walked straight to the throne, pulled out a chair, and sat next to Euphia. He crossed his legs, clasped his fingers, and said, Blue Waves Empire's great general, Jun Changxiao. Great general? An ambassador sneered, my Blue Waves Empire has been established for tens of thousands of years, but there has never been a great general. There wasn't before. Euphia said, there is now. After that, she took out the imperial jade seal her father gave her from her space ring and solemnly announced, in the name of the Blue Waves Empire's great general, I announce that Jun Changxiao will be the great general of the Blue Waves Empire. Shua! Jun Changxiao hurriedly walked down and cupped his hands, thank you, Your Majesty. Your Majesty. This woman dared to secretly ascend the throne. Ha ha ha. An ambassador of a certain country laughed, a woman without soldiers and generals actually dared to try to usurp the throne. It seems that the fire poison attacked her heart and burned her brain. Great lord, at this moment, a few soldiers staggered in and said in a frightened tone, there are monsters in the sky, monsters? Everyone was at a loss, so they walked out of the hall one after another. When they raised their heads, their expressions gradually became sluggish until it reached the level of hardening. What did they see? They saw the sky gradually distort as if it was being torn apart by some kind of terrifying force. Then, more than 10 huge warships slowly appeared. The momentum was so great that it shook the sky and the mountains and rivers. Caw! Caw! The bottom of the cabin opened, and streams of light flew out and landed neatly in the inner courtyard of the palace. Astonishingly, 200,000 well-equipped and tall soldiers appeared. All the ambassadors were completely dumbfounded. Even Euphia, who walked out, was dumbfounded. Shua! 200,000 Moang soldiers performed the highest standard military salute and shouted loudly, Greetings, Your Majesty. Greetings, Great General. Their voices were so loud that it seemed to pierce through the void and deeply shocked Euphia and the other ambassadors. Shua! Jun Changxiao flew out and stood in front of the army. He had already put on his armor and cupped his hands. This General Jun Changxiao is willing to go through water and tread on fire for the Blue Waves Empire. He was not pretending. He was helping Euphia to pretend. Chapter 1683. Jun Changxiao decided to help Euphia, but she was an outsider after all. Thus, he thought of a way to help her become the emperor and appoint himself as the general. This way, he would have an excuse to beat up the various kingdoms. Of course. Gou Sheng was already very low-key. He only sent out 200,000 devil soldiers and left the rest in the warships. Otherwise, the entire plain would be bathed in blood. Speaking of which, why did Jun Changshao want to build so many warships? It was because he wanted to bring his army with him at all times. When they were outside, they might encounter trouble. So, having more people would definitely give them an advantage. There was no such thing as a one-on-one battle. Either you fight us alone or we fight you alone. The envoys of the various kingdoms were deeply shocked by the hundreds of thousands of soldiers. Especially when they felt the extremely powerful demonic chi, they were so frightened that their hair stood on end. They had seen millions of soldiers before, but they had never seen 200,000 Transformation Core Realm warriors. Furthermore, they were men who were riding horses. They were mighty and majestic. Naturally, Euphia was the most shocked. After all, 11 warships were floating above the imperial city. It was exactly the same as the 24 diagrams. The only difference was that it lacked the worshipping of thousands of people. Imperial Father. This is true. Mr. Jun can help our Blue Waves Empire rise. She became more and more emotional. In the end, she covered her mouth and tried hard not to cry. Sitting on the throne and appointing Jun Changshao as the general, everything was arranged. Euphia was nothing more than going through the formalities. She even suspected that her actions would be used against the royal family by the various kingdoms. However, when the battleships appeared, when the elite soldiers appeared, all the doubts vanished into thin air. He could show. At this moment, the disciples of the Sect of all times led by Li Qingyang flew out of the warships. They were wearing battle armor and had cold gazes. They seemed to have transformed into veteran generals. Capture all these traitors who bring disaster to the country and the people. Jun Changshao shouted angrily. The aura of the general immediately soared. If one was not in position, one should not meddle in politics. If one was in position, one had to meddle in politics. Yes. Upon receiving the order, all the disciples rushed over. Let's see who dares. One of the ambassadors stepped forward and clenched his fists tightly. Violent fire elemental energy burst forth and tore his shirt apart, revealing his perfect 8-pack abs. Tsk tisk. Envoy Yang's use of the fire cloud body has reached the pinnacle. Some people exclaimed in surprise. Humph. Envoy Yang coldly said, when has there ever been a woman ascending the throne in my Blue Waves Empire? Today, if Princess wants to go against the laws of our ancestors, Yang Ji will absolutely not agree. Boom. The ground caved in and dust flew everywhere. Yi Xingqian walked out with an arrogant look on his face. He dragged Envoy Yang's leg with one hand as if he was dragging a dead dog. He said, trash should go back to the garbage dump. I, Knight Emperor, am still a man of few words. Silence. Yi Si. All the envoys knew of Yang Ji's strength. Who would have thought that he would be defeated by a young man who looked cold and arrogant but was not very strong? Yi Xingqian was suppressing his aura. Otherwise, with his current strength, he would be one of the top experts in the entire Scarlet Hell realm. Sitting on the chair prepared by Xiao Ziji, Jun Changshao crossed his legs and faintly said, if you guys cooperate, you can avoid physical pain. Brat! An envoy said angrily, you must have used some method to control the princess. As subjects of the Blue Waves Empire, how can we let you do whatever you want? Jun Changshao said, you actually have the face to call yourself a subject of the Blue Waves Empire. How laughable. Whoosh! Whoosh! Li Qingyang, Su Xiaoma, and the others had already flown over. Each of them stared at an envoy, waiting for their final statement. Everyone! An envoy shouted, since the princess is going against the flow, we must stop her. As soon as this was said, everyone responded. Then, when they gave their statement, Li Qingyang and the others began the next step of the plan, which was to directly capture them. The various envoys would definitely not be captured without a fight. They all erupted with their cultivation, forming a rather vast and mighty aura. Li Qingyang and the others looked at each other. They had a look of, I wanted to get along with you as an ordinary person, but in exchange, whoosh. Whoosh. The core disciples did not pretend anymore. They fully released their cultivation of the truth-seeking realm, directly suppressing the martial aura of the various envoys. The envoys' expressions changed drastically, and they even vomited blood on the spot. These people's strength was not bad, but in front of the disciples of the sect of all times, they were weak chickens. Plop! Plop! Under the terrifying pressure, the various envoys knelt on the ground, feeling extremely painful. Your Majesty! Jun Changshao said, the best way to deal with such people is not to persuade them, but to directly make them kneel. Euphia was silent. In the past, she wanted to rely on the power of pills to rope in talents to revive the royal family. Now, she understood that to Mr. This was simply a waste of time. Whoosh! Whoosh! Li Qingyang and the others led a large number of soldiers from the imperial city and flew in all directions. The envoys were just assistants. It was useless to make them kneel. They had to make all the heads of the kingdom kneel. Your Majesty! Jun Changshao poured a cup of tea and said with a smile, please wait quietly for 2 hours. The might of the empire will resound throughout the Scarlet Prison realm again. Chapter 1684. In the main hall of the Dayuan Kingdom, King Jin Yuanqiu sat on the throne with a complicated expression on his face as he held the secret report he had just received. The content of the letter was that Princess Royal Euphia had ascended the throne without permission and appointed Jun Changshao as the great general. Everyone. He threw the letter to his advisors and asked, what do you think of this? Everyone read it one by one with disapproval on their faces. Who is Jun Changshao? This person is no longer important. An advisor with a goatee cupped his hands and said, since the establishment of the Blue Waves Empire, it has always been passed down to males and not females. The princess's ascension to the throne is against the laws of the ancestors. Our Dayuan kingdom can take this opportunity to eliminate her to prevent future troubles. That's right. This is a great opportunity. Everyone agreed. Jin Yuanqiu, on the other hand, had a troubled look on his face, but he was actually quite happy. As one of the more powerful kingdoms in the Scarlet Hell world, he naturally wanted to replace the Blue Waves Empire and build his own dynasty. However, the royal family still existed, so he couldn't act too recklessly to avoid being labeled as a traitor. The other powerful kingdoms also thought so. When it was difficult to unify the Scarlet Hell world, abolishing the royal family without permission would only bring trouble. But now, it was different. The Blue Waves Empire's emperor was still alive, and the Princess Royal had ascended the throne as a woman. They could take the opportunity to eliminate her. At least the world wouldn't gossip. King! The advisor said, time waits for no one. Strike first and gain the upper hand. Makes sense. Jin Yuanqiu immediately stood up and said, immediately send troops to take control of the imperial city and announce to the public that the Princess Royal wants to go against the tide and usurp the throne. Yes. Boom. However, just as the advisors received the order, an earth-shattering explosion suddenly came from outside, and the entire hall trembled. Jin Yuanqiu frowned and immediately led everyone out. He saw that the great array guarding the main city had appeared, and there were pits in the city gate area as if it had been hit by some force. King! A general hurriedly ran over and said with a panicked expression, 10,000 well-equipped soldiers suddenly appeared outside the city and are trying to break the great array of the main city. Jin Yuanqiu was instantly enraged. The Yuan city was the capital city that he had painstakingly managed, and it would also be the imperial capital of the future empress. It was surrounded by various troops and horses, and could be said to be impregnable. How could it be attacked for no reason? Reporting. At this moment, a guard ran over. Flying Eagle City has been breached. What? Jin Yuanqiu stood there in a daze. Soaring Eagle City was an important military base of the Dayuan Kingdom. Elite soldiers were stationed there all year round, and they had never heard of the front lines being in a dire situation. How could it be gone just like that? Reporting. Huguan City was breached. Reporting. Lion Might City has been breached. Reporting. In a short time, the spies who were responsible for getting in touch with the major cities sent in information one after another. The atmosphere outside the hall instantly became extremely quiet. Pooh! A moment later, Jin Yuanshu spat out a mouthful of blood on the spot, clutching his chest as he staggered backward. With so many cities falling at the same time, who would be able to take it? Boom! At this moment, another deafening noise rang out. The strategists present saw a beam of energy that dragged a stream of light fiercely smashing into the great city protection array, creating a massive ripple. Crack! Crack, crack, crack! The formation quickly collapsed, forming a dense cluster of cracks. Oh no! The great city protection array is about to be broken. Boom! At this moment, another stream of light flew over and mercilessly smashed into the crumbling barrier. Unable to bear the load, it instantly shattered into countless specks of light and quickly disappeared into the void. Whoosh! Whoosh! Tens of thousands of Devil Army soldiers flew over rapidly. They floated above the city, and a monstrous demonic aura spread wildly, forming an extremely terrifying oppressive force. The Grand General has given the order. Xiao Ziji stood at the front of the army and said, Deyuan King Jin Yuanshu must immediately go to the capital to meet His Majesty. If he disobeys, kill him without mercy. The camera panned to the outside of the city, and field cannons were placed horizontally on the hills. The continuous bombardment of the Great City Protection Array came from firearms that had not been used for a long time. The system's products were definitely of high quality. Whether or not they could be used depended on the strength of the source. Without high-quality resources as a substitute, it would be difficult to even kill mosquitoes in the upper realm. With high-quality resources as a substitute, it would not be a problem to blast through the entire upper realm. Of course. It was just an exaggeration. After all, there was a limit to the power of the modified field cannon. It was difficult to use it in the upper realm, but in the lower Scarlet Hell world, it could still be effective by incorporating high-quality resources. The Dayuan Kingdom's main city was heavily protected by various major cities. How did Xiao Ziji come here? It was very simple. All those who blocked his way were eliminated. In other words, the fall of all the major cities was due to him. Because they came too quickly and were destroyed too quickly, the news only slowly reached Jin Yuanshu's ears when Xiao Ziji led his troops to the main city. He was just talking about how time waits for no one, and that he should strike first to gain the upper hand. In the end, the two towers at home were all flattened. What a tragedy! A similar situation was playing out in the Changyuan Kingdom's main city. The Devil Army led by Su Xiaoma stood in the sky above the broken city. Their powerful demonic aura and cultivation shocked Prince Changyuan. In the face of absolute power, the defense of the Scarlet Hell world's major kingdoms was as fragile as paper. All right, Prince Changyuan's hands trembled as he said with difficulty, I'll go to the capital to meet His Majesty right away. His own elites and his own city had been destroyed in an instant. The soldiers that had suddenly appeared were too terrifying. He had no choice but to admit defeat. Take him away. Su Xiaoma ordered. Whoosh! Whoosh! A few Devil Army soldiers flew to the front of the main hall and grabbed Prince Changyuan's arm. This was definitely not an invitation, but a forceful one. No one stopped them. Some had already fainted on the ground. Deyuan King Jin Yuanshu obviously did not have the same awareness as Prince Changyuan. His attitude was very tough. He only realized the seriousness of the problem when he was stepped on and saw all his subordinates being defeated. I'll go. The basic condition for cowardice was that the opponent's strength was overwhelming. Take him away. Prince Changyuan and Dayuan King realized that the situation was not right and immediately cowered. The other was tough at first, but later admitted defeat. However, Dingyuan King of the Dingyuan Kingdom was not so lucky. He was tough at first, but in the end, his head was separated from his body. His dull eyes seemed to say, "You're not even giving me a chance to admit defeat? Take his head away." Yes. 2 devil army soldiers flew down and took Dingyuan King's head. Yi Xingchen, who was standing outside the main hall, turned around and looked at the panic-stricken advisor. He said coldly, "This is the result of resisting. Only Night Emperor would not give the other party a chance to admit defeat." Imperial City. Jun Changshao sat on the city gate tower, drinking tea as he said, "Make your move." Yu Fia, who was sitting across the chessboard, was speechless. At this moment, how could she be in the mood to play chess? "Your Majesty," Jun Changshao advised, "look at it normally. Don't treat it as a big deal." Yu Fia smiled bitterly and said, "I don't have teacher's extraordinary composure." "All right." Jun Changshao threw the chess piece on the table casually. He raised his hand to look at the ground and said, "It's about time. They should be here soon." Whoosh! Whoosh! As soon as he said that, the devil army led by Su Xiaoma, Xiao Ziji, and the others quickly flew over and lined up outside the city. The leaders of the kingdoms bent their knees and knelt on the ground like prisoners. Changyuan King is here. Dayuan King is here. The loud shout shook the sky and Yufia's heart. That was because 11 warships were hovering above the imperial city, and various lords were kneeling outside the city. It was a perfect fit with the 24 paintings in the future pavilion. Ding! Congratulations to the host for dominating the Scarlet Hell world. Ding! Completed the main mission, progress 1%. Chapter 1685. 11 warships floated above the floating imperial city. All the nobles were invited to kneel outside the city. This scene perfectly reproduced the 24th deduction diagram drawn in the future pavilion. Unbelievable! Jun Changshao was also shocked. Who was the expert who assisted the ancestors of the Blue Waves Empire 10,000 years ago? He actually drew this scene without any deviation, as if he was on the scene. On the scene! Jun Changshao hurriedly released his spiritual sense and shrouded the imperial city. When the disciples of the sect of all times moved out together, the warriors of other cities arrived one after another after seeing the warships, so there were a lot of people gathered outside the city at this moment, which just happened to match the deduction diagram. What are you looking for? Transmigrator. If it was just a text prophecy, Jun Changshao could still express his understanding, but even the scene that happened today could be drawn accurately. Perhaps, the original body was on the scene and then transmigrated to draw everything. The system was speechless. The host's imagination is really big. Jun Changshao's current strength was extremely powerful. In an instant, it covered thousands of miles around the imperial city, carefully screening every warrior, not even letting go of the flowers and trees. Because of the hot environment in the Scarlet Hell world, the skin of the women was mostly wheat-colored, which looked very charming. Unfortunately, Jun Changshao's mind was not here, and he kept looking for suspicious people. Yes. Suddenly, he saw a black-robed man whose face could not be seen clearly on a hill 100 miles away from the city. With Jun Changshao's strength, he was absolutely invincible in the Scarlet Hell world, but he couldn't see his true appearance with his spiritual sense. There must be a big problem. Appeared? Was there a monster on the scene? Is it him? Just as he was about to get up and fly over, he found that the hill was empty. Where is he? Jun Changshao was dumbfounded. He had locked onto the black-robed man from all directions and would never let his guard down, but he just couldn't see him. It was as if he had encountered a ghost. Ding! Congratulations to the host for dominating the Scarlet Hell world. Ding! It is within the scope of the main mission, progress 1%. Suddenly, a crisp prompt sounded in his ear. Fuck! Jun Changshao was dumbfounded again. Many people guessed that Go Sheng was helping Yu Fia on a mission. No, there was no mission at all. He simply wanted to help a weak girl regain the authority and dignity that belonged to the royal family and earn some extra money while he was at it. However, today, he had captured all the marquises in a thunderous manner and dominated the Scarlet Hell sector. It was too sudden. He was caught off guard. Conquering the Scarlet Hell is in line with the main quest. Progress, 1%. Did this mean that he still had to conquer other planes? Did it mean that there were still 99 other planes waiting for him? Fuck, Go Shing hugged the dog's head, despair written all over his face. If it was really as he had guessed, conquering existential planes one by one and completing the main mission would definitely be more difficult and time-consuming than developing a sect. Moreover, this was taking 100% as an example. What if it was 1000% or even 10,000%? I knew it. Jun Changshao howled in his heart, a brand new main storyline mission will definitely not be as simple as the introduction says. The host should be happy. The system said, at least I know how to complete the main quest. Happy your grandma's leg. Jun Changshao roared, conquering a plane only gives me 1%. How many planes do I have to conquer to complete this? In fact, the system was right. At least he knew how to complete the main quest. However, what made Go Shing break down was that who could guarantee that the next plane he conquered would be within the scope of the mission and meet the requirements? That's true. The system said, I sympathize. Conquering the Scarlet Hell sector gave him an example and provided him with an idea. However, there were countless existential planes in the vast universe. Who was within the scope of the mission and who was not? Sigh. Jun Changshao looked up at the sky and sighed. It was not easy to get rid of the main quest of developing a sect, and now he was given another mission to conquer all the major existential planes. If he had a choice, he would rather continue to develop the sect, at least in a fixed area and a fixed development, unlike now where he still had to wander around. I think it's normal. The system said, the first 2 missions are aimed at developing the sect. After the host completes them, it is inevitable that you will lead your disciples to conquer the universe. Jun Changshao was silent. Mr. Jun, at this moment, Euphia asked in a low voice, what are you thinking about? Jun Changshao came back to his senses and said, these rebels have been captured. His Majesty will decide whether to kill them or punish them. Next, this humble one will integrate all the kingdoms and make them completely submit to the Blue Waves Empire. Go Sheng was very efficient in handling matters. On the same day, he ordered his disciples to go to the leaderless kingdoms and force them to hand over all their rights and obey the orders of the Blue Waves Empire. Those who resisted would be killed without mercy. Jun Changshao's cold side was completely revealed, and it gave some readers a chance to dig up dirt on him. A general's success is built on the bones of thousands. Standing on the top floor of the imperial capital, Go Sheng looked at the distant sky and said with emotion, my actions today will be judged by future generations. With absolute means, Euphia quickly obtained the power and military strength of the various kingdoms. Later, she listened to her teacher's suggestion and removed the enfeoffment system that had existed for tens of thousands of years and changed it to a county system, thus strengthening the centralization of power. Wasn't the plot very familiar? Yes, Jun Changshao adopted the political system of the Qin dynasty after the unification of the 6 kingdoms. After all the feudal lords were killed and imprisoned, the chaotic era of feudal lords that had lasted for nearly 1,000 years came to an end. Under the support of Jun Changshao, the precarious Blue Waves Empire rose again. As for how long it could last, it was no longer a matter of concern. The general trend of the world, after being separated for a long time, it would unite, and after being united for a long time, it would divide. He could be the savior, but he couldn't be the eternal savior. Sir. Euphia saluted and said, many thanks for your help. My Blue Waves Empire can continue. No need to thank me. Jun Changshao said, if you want to thank someone, you should thank the expert who assisted your ancestor. Honestly speaking, the reason why Go Sheng helped Euphia was partly because of the resources and partly because of the deduction map. He was very curious. Was there really a great God in this world who could predict the future? See the future. I have already obtained the finances of the various kingdoms. How many first-class firestones does Sir need? This, give me as you see fit. A few days later. All the creatures in the Scarlet Hell world looked up at the sky and made a gesture of worship. Whoosh whoosh. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. 11 warships lowered their anchors and slowly merged into the depths of space. The Scarlet Hell world was just a very ordinary station in the starry sky for the Sect of all times. When everything was done, it was inevitable to leave. As for Euphia, she was just a very ordinary passerby on Jun Changxiao's life. When she appeared, there were actually readers who thought that he wanted to start a harem. Weren't they thinking too highly of Gosheng? Or were they reading too many novels? As long as a female character appeared, even if the supporting roles and extras were not confirmed, they would think that there would be some love and hate between them. Could it be that there was no pure friendship between men and women, between people? Are they leaving? When the 11 warships disappeared into the sky, the black-robed man appeared again and whispered, "I was almost discovered by him." No. Suddenly, a voice came from behind. "You have been discovered." The black-robed man hurriedly turned around and saw Jun Changxiao standing behind him with a very cheap smile on his face. "Leave a hole." He shrugged and said, "It's not my character." Chapter 1686. The 11 battleships left, but Jun Changxiao didn't, because he was still thinking about the mysterious man in black. He released his spiritual senses to cover most of the Scarlet Hell world. At first, he didn't have much hope, but when he was about to leave, he accidentally discovered something. This was a trap. He had to get rid of it before leaving. Sigh. The black-robed man sighed and then turned around. Although he was facing Jun Changxiao, he kept his head down, making it difficult to see his face. "Who are you?" "I'm from Jianghu." This answer was a bit too general. Strictly speaking, Jun Changxiao was also from Jianghu. Anyone who knew martial arts was considered a Jianghu person. Jun Patriarch. The black-robed man said, "It's fate that we can meet in the Scarlet Hell world. It seems that you know me." Jun Changxiao had never told Euphia that he was the master of a sect, but this person called him Jun Patriarch. Things were probably not as simple as he thought. The black-robed man shook his head and said, "I know you in the future, but I don't know you now." "In the future? Now?" Jun Changxiao seemed to have understood something and said, "You came from the future?" "Ha ha ha." The black-robed man laughed and said, "As expected of Jun Patriarch, you hit the nail on the head." Whoosh! At this moment, a big hand with a strong force pressed down. The black-robed man didn't expect Jun Changxiao to suddenly attack. He was caught off guard and was directly pressed to the ground, the side of his face intimately touching the ground. Pretending to be mysterious. Gosheng grabbed with one hand and tore off the other's black robe, revealing an ordinary and unfamiliar male face. He had never seen it before. He didn't know it. Jun Changxiao instantly came to a conclusion. Of course, he wouldn't give up just like that. He put his 5 fingers on his face and scratched it hard. "Jun Patriarch. You're being rude." The black-robed man who was pressed to the ground did not resist. Bright red scratch marks gradually appeared on his face. After confirming that this fellow wasn't wearing a human skin mask, Jun Changxiao lifted him up and said, "I don't like to listen to nonsense, so I hope you can be honest and lenient." "Confess what?" "Who are you?" "Zhang San." Boom! Jun Changxiao pressed him to the ground again and said coldly, "Why don't you call yourself Li Si?" "Li Si is my friend." Gosheng thought that the other party was not cooperating and was even deliberately playing with him. So, he immediately used the method of torturing Shi Jingxian and smashed her up and down, left and right. Boom boom boom. Boom boom boom. After a while, the black-robed man lay in the pit with a bloody nose and a swollen face. He said, "Don't think that I can't beat you." I've just been letting you win. Fuck you. Boom. 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 In the end, the black-robed man couldn't resist and fainted gloriously. Whoosh! Jun Changshao picked him up and then said goodbye to Yufia in the imperial city. Then, he broke through the void and flew away from the Scarlet Hell world. Although Sir has left, we should remember his great kindness. Come, cast bronze statues in the major cities for future generations to worship. Yes. Blue Waves Calendar, Year 1, Year 2020, January 23. The Eternal Pirates led by Jun Changshao sailed away from the Scarlet Hell world. Statues of him were soon erected in the major cities. His deeds of turning the tide would also be recorded in history. Whoosh! Whoosh! 11 warships traversed the universe at an extremely fast speed. The disciples in charge of the drive device placed first-class fire stones in the array to replace the Dao stones. In order to thank Jun Changshao for helping the rise of the royal family, Yufia generously gave him 200 million. Of course. Gou Xing really didn't take any advantage this time. Because at this moment, in the military drill ground outside the imperial capital, thousands of Diablo were neatly arranged. The soldiers were carrying out daily checks and adjustments. Although the major vassals had been dealt with, there might be accidents, so Jun Changshao left these mechas behind, hoping that they could help Yufia suppress everything at any time. Was it a loss to exchange 200 million first-class fire stones for 1,000 Diablo? Putting aside the level of saving the Blue Waves Empire and thousands of lives, did Jun Changshao consider exchanging something of equal value for it? Right or wrong, the public would judge, and the readers would judge. Come. In the large cafeteria of the Eternal, Jun Changshao raised his bowl and said, for obtaining a large amount of energy this time, cheers. The disciples who had participated in the integration of the major vassals raised their wine glasses one after another, and the warm atmosphere in the worship became more intense. Junior brother Yi. Su Xiaoma said, come, let's drink. Yi Xingchen's expression was very interesting. Before occupying the body of the demon ancestor, he would definitely not refuse, but now, scared? No way. Come. Come. Yi Xingchen raised his bowl and drank it in one gulp. Then, he collapsed on the ground in a flash. Jun Changshao, who was sitting at the side, saw this and shook his head. After changing bodies, he can't hold his liquor anymore. He didn't drink much, as he still had to interrogate the black-robed man who called himself Zhang San. Patriarch. That guy escaped from prison. In the cabin used to temporarily hold prisoners, Jun Changshao looked at the scattered ropes on the ground and said with a broken expression, there are all kinds of array systems in the warship, how did he escape? Patriarch. Li Qingyang said, there are words on the wall. Jun Changshao turned around and saw words written on the side of the cabin. The content was the upper universe is in an era of great change, and people like Jun Patriarch are needed to lead the charge. If fate wills it, we will meet again in the underworld. Fuck. Gou Xing cursed, meet again in the underworld, my ass. It took him a lot of effort to catch that guy, but he escaped without getting anything out of him. Of course he was unhappy. Host, haven't you noticed? What did you notice? The words left on the wall are similar to the words on the deduction diagram. Jun Changshao was startled and hurriedly took out the photo he took in the future pavilion. After careful comparison, he was sure that it was not similar, but exactly the same. This meant that it was done by the same person. He is the expert who helped the ancestor of the Blue Waves Empire unify the Scarlet Prison world. The black-robed man suddenly disappeared, and Jun Changshao couldn't get any useful information. However, from the words left and the deduction diagram, he concluded that it was the same person. What did this mean? It meant that the previous guess of a transmigrator was most likely true. The upper universe is in an era of great change. Jun Changshao looked at the words on the wall again and then rolled his eyes. What does it have to do with me? Why should I lead the charge? How the universe changed had nothing to do with him. Now, the invited task was to meet up with his life and death brothers, and then fight their way to the star spirit world together. A month later, on the starry sky map, a never-before-seen plane appeared again. Just from the light spots, it was obviously bigger than the Scarlet Prison world. Patriarch Shangwan Xinyao asked, "Do you want to go in?" "Go in." Going to the Scarlet Prison world originated from the first plane discovered after the interstellar journey. This time, after understanding the rules of the main mission, he naturally wanted to take a look. Maybe he could accidentally increase it by 99%. Of course. The system said, "Host, you will definitely successfully complete the main mission this time." Whoosh! Whoosh! 11 battleships quickly arrived outside the new plane, and Jun Changshao took a few disciples and blended in. Everything is as expected. In the endless universe, the black-robed man who disappeared gradually appeared. A meaningful smile appeared on his ordinary face, and then he gradually disappeared, leaving behind a huge void pit. Chapter 1687. Boom! Boom! A deafening explosion came from the desolate land, and the entire sky seemed to be trembling. After a while, everything stopped. Two figures gradually appeared in the dust-filled area. They were 1,000 feet away from each other, and everything around them had turned into nothingness. The camera panned to an extremely far distance. The space and ground within tens of thousands of miles collapsed. The scene was too horrible to look at. Obviously, the two were fighting. Because of the high intensity, the plane seemed to be experiencing the end of the world. Ha ha ha. When the dust completely dissipated, the white-haired old man laughed and said, "After cultivating for so many years, your strength still hasn't improved." "Same to you." The black-haired old man opposite him said coldly. "You've already used your trump card, and mine." The white-haired old man raised his right hand, and his turbid eyes suddenly turned cold. "I haven't used it yet." The black-haired old man frowned slightly, and then said disapprovingly, "I'll see what you've learned in the past few hundred years. Watch carefully." The white-haired old man looked up and raised his hands high, making a gesture similar to a sacrifice. Then, his eyes gradually widened. The black-haired old man looked calm on the surface, but he was actually a little flustered, so he kept his vigilance high. In the end, the other party kept staring and even stared straight, but did not attack. Fuck. Come on. No. There was a special aura pressing down from above. The black-haired old man finally realized. He hurriedly looked up, and then widened his eyes like the white-haired old man. From their vision, they could clearly see that the space above the sky was stirred by some kind of force, gradually forming a huge vortex. The scene was magnificent. The sudden change also alarmed all the living beings in this plane. They all looked up and saw the natural phenomenon. They were deeply shocked. Could it be that a supreme treasure has appeared? Let's go. Swoosh! 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 In an instant, the top experts of this plane flew over and gathered outside the vortex in the shortest time possible. At such a close distance, that kind of shocking aura was even stronger than before. What kind of supreme treasure is it? The various martial artists guessed in their hearts and realized that when the supreme treasure appeared, there would be a fierce battle. You all. At this moment, the two old men who were fighting earlier flew over and said in unison, "Scram." It was just 3 words, but they contained the most profound meaning. It shook everyone to the point that their blood was roiling, and they almost couldn't resist falling from the sky. Old Ancestor Tianyang. Old Ancestor of Earth Yin. The expressions of the experts present changed. If one were to ask who was the strongest in this plane, the first thing that came to everyone's mind was Heavenly Yang and Earthly Yin. With the 2 old monsters here, if we dare to snatch it, we'll definitely die a tragic death. He's gone, he's gone. The martial artists who were originally filled with hot-blooded blood immediately flew away. If he couldn't afford to offend them, he had to hide. The major powers were unconvinced and continued to stand outside the vortex. One of the experts with status said coldly, "Heavenly materials and earthly treasures are obtained by fate." The two seniors should have heard of this before, right? It seems like you don't plan to scram. The white-haired old man's eyes turned cold, and his killing intent and anger leaked out. This gaze was a bit frightening, startling that expert to the point that cold sweat appeared on his forehead. He thought to himself, this old fellow's strength has increased again. The various forces were not willing to leave just like that, and the two top powerhouses were not willing to compromise. The atmosphere instantly became somber. Whoosh! Right at this moment, a stream of light flew out from the vortex. Supreme treasure. It had appeared. Everyone started to move. However, when they saw that the stream of light had transformed into a beautiful woman dressed in white, they were instantly stunned. With such a huge commotion, many people guessed that it was a heavenly material and earthly treasure. In the end, a person flew out from inside. This was absolutely unexpected. So beautiful. A fairy descending to the mortal world? The martial artists who were hiding in the distance were all dumbfounded. The woman who suddenly appeared had black hair that flowed down like a waterfall. Her eyebrows were curved, her nose was delicate, her face was sparkling like jade, her skin was like ice and snow, and her figure was graceful and slender. She could be said to be extremely beautiful. Heavenly Yang and Earthly Yin were also stunned. At their age, they were already immune to beauty. However, they were still amazed that there was such a stunning woman in this world. Whoosh! Whoosh! Right at this moment, another two streams of light flew out from the huge vortex. They were two young men. One of them had an imposing appearance, while the other was arrogant and cold. "Did you come here to welcome us knowing that we're coming?" From his tone, it was not hard to tell that he was the captain of the eternal pirate group, Dongsun Di Gosheng. Standing beside him was Yaya. As for the beautiful woman in white, she was the eldest disciple of the sect of all times, Lu Chanshan. Jun Changshao and Yixingchen roared, "Why was she so normal when she introduced us? Why did she have to add some foreign names when she introduced us?" "You are?" an expert cautioned. There were no heavenly materials or earthly treasures in the whirlpool. Instead, two men and a woman flew in. The sense of mystery was too strong. "Your humble servant is Jun Changshao." Gosheng cupped his hands and said, "I came uninvited today because I want to dominate this plane." After discovering the rules of the main mission, he planned to use the simplest method, which was to use his strength to intimidate the planes he passed by, thus triggering the mission conditions. Of course, he would not be an invader, nor would he snatch their resources. All he needed was recognition. "Humph." Patriarch Tianyang said coldly, "Dominate my mountain river realm? You sure talk big." The experts of the various forces were also very unhappy, but seeing that the top experts had taken the initiative to speak, they would definitely not steal the limelight. Jun Changshao released his spiritual sense and scanned all the warriors present. After confirming that the white-haired old man and the black-haired old man were the strongest, he grinned and said, "Do you want to fight?" Finding a top expert to fight and win, this was the so-called recognition with strength. To put it bluntly, Gosheng came here for one purpose, to fight. "Come." Patriarch Tianyang said, "Fight." He had fought with Patriarch Earth Yin for tens of thousands of years, and his blood was filled with fighting spirit. Since someone suddenly came to fight today, he would definitely fight to the end. "The two of you are quite strong. To save time, come at me together," Jun Changshao said. Heavenly Yang and Earth Yin were instantly enraged. The two of them were considered top experts in the mountain river realm. They had always fought one against many, but today they were outnumbered. Who were they looking down on? "As for you guys." Jun Changshao looked at the warriors of the various forces and said, "Wash up and sleep." This guy was very arrogant, because only then could he stimulate the warriors of the mountain river realm and have a good fight with him. "Goodbye." Swoosh! 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 In an instant, all the forces gathered near the whirlpool left. For the treasures, they dared to fight Heavenly Yang and Earthly Yin. Now that they knew that was not the case, they naturally had no interest in staying here. As for fighting, sorry, their backs are waiting to be dealt with. Seeing that they all ran away without looking back, Jun Changshao was speechless. Am I not arrogant enough? It was not that they were not arrogant enough, but as the strongest forces of the Mountain River realm, Heavenly Yang and Earthly Yin, the other forces naturally would not jump out. If Gosheng dared to shout in front of them that he was going to invade the Mountain River realm, he would probably be surrounded by them now. Kid! Patriarch Tianyang said lightly, come and fight. Boom! The ground shook violently, and dust covered the sky. The camera slowly moved up, only to see Jun Changshao standing where Patriarch Tianyang was, ready to punch. He turned to look at Patriarch Earth Yin and grinned. Are you ready? Chapter 1688. Boom! The earth shook again, and dust flew up again. When everything calmed down, Earth Yin lay next to Heavenly Yang. The two brothers moved in unison, foaming at the mouth and twitching the corners of their mouths. Sigh. Jun Changshao, who was standing in the air, shook his head and said, too weak. He was not pretending. He was really disappointed that he could not have a good fight. Yi Xingqian was speechless. It was not that the two old men were weak, but that the patriarch was too strong. When could he be so strong and run amok in the upper universe? In terms of scale, the Mountain River realm was much larger than the Scarlet Hell realm, and its heaven and earth attributes were also extremely majestic. Its overall martial arts level was high, and the two strongest representatives, Heavenly Yang and Earthly Yin, were even at the peak of the truth-seeking realm. However, they were nothing in front of Jun Changshao, who was a half-step divine secret realm. Who said that one would be bullied if they changed the map? Jun Changshao, who had flown away from the upper realm and started the era of space travel, broke the law with practical actions and explained what a real protagonist was. Do you admit defeat? Yes. Heavenly Yang and Earthly Yin said with difficulty. Jun Changshao did not hit them hard, but the two brothers were very uncomfortable at the moment. The reason was that they had been fighting for the title of number one in the world for a long time, but they were defeated by an outsider. They were sad and uncomfortable. Gosheng squatted by the pit and said, the path of martial arts is like an endless sea. If you want to cross the dangers to reach the other side, you need a lighthouse to guide you. Heavenly Yang and Earthly Yin were a little confused. And I, Jun Changshao said seriously, am the lighthouse that stands tall in the stormy waves. Got it. This guy wants to recruit us. The scene of the captain of the first fleet of the Star Spirit realm coming to the upper realm and summoning thousands of truth-seeking realm cultivators was still vivid in Jun Changshao's mind, so he naturally had to bring enough people over. Although there were many martial artists in the Scarlet Hell realm, their overall martial arts strength was low and not suitable for boarding the ship. The two peak truth-seeking realm cultivators under his feet were undoubtedly the best candidates. One plane could recruit 2. 10 planes would be 20. 100 planes would be 200. 1,000 planes would be, Gosheng couldn't calculate it, but he could imagine that when the time came for him to lead his troops to the Star Spirit world, they would definitely be afraid. Alright, Heavenly Yang Earthly Hyper Technique, we are willing to treat you as our lighthouse. A wise man submits to circumstances. Jun Changshao nodded in satisfaction. He then retracted the Green Dragon Crescent Blade, Jade Dragon asked the Heaven Sword, AWM Sniper Rifles, and the Field Artillery on their heads. After taking care of the two top powerhouses of the Mountain River realm, he did not trigger the main mission. This meant that this place might not be within the scope of the mission. Fuck. Jun Changshao was on the verge of breaking down. The universe is so big, and the planes are so big. If you don't even give me a hint, who knows how long it'll take to complete it? I'm fine. The system comforted him, at least there's no time limit. Jun Changshao adjusted his bad mood and took Heavenly Yang Earthly Hyper Technique for a stroll in the Mountain River realm. His goal was to collect martial arts resources. The heaven and earth attribute of this plane was not weak, so it nurtured many high-grade ores that could be used as fuel for flight. Here came the problem. How could he obtain them? Jun Changshao could not rob them, because it was immoral. So after thinking about it, he decided to do business with the Mountain River realm, using items of equal value to exchange for ores. What do you have? I have body-shaping pills, soul-shaping pills, frost blade, true yang set. I have what they don't have. The system was speechless. Martial arts secret manuals could not be given to others, but pills, equipment, and treasures could. For example, the most common body-shaping pill. To the disciples of the sect of all times, they had to take it the moment they entered the sect. It could be said that it was very common. However, to others, it was comparable to a divine medicine. Naturally, they would spend a lot of money to buy it. Robbing was impossible. Only by selling pills in the plain could they make a living. City Lord he spent 1 million Mountain River Spirit Stones to buy 100 body-shaping pills and 100 soul-shaping pills. Patriarch Lin spent 3 million Mountain River Spirit Stones to buy 10 high-grade cloud-piercing sabers and 5 pieces of True Yang set. In the largest city of the Mountain River realm, Li Qingyang, Xiao Ziji, and the other disciples were disguised as shop assistants, recording the transactions and delivering items. They were extremely busy. The products of the system were definitely of high quality. The quality of the various pills and equipment was definitely top-notch. Patriarch. A few days later, Li Qingyang did an inventory. The total number of Mountain River Spirit Stones obtained from this public sale is 360 million. Not bad, not bad. Jun Changshao was very satisfied. First, they did not rob. Second, they did not steal. They relied on pills and equipment to get what they needed. Who could find fault with that? Let's go. Whoosh! Whoosh! That day, Jun Changshao left the Mountain River realm with Tianyang and Dean. He came softly, just as he left softly. He only took a few 100 million spirit stones with a wave of his hand. Of course, he took away a lot of martial arts resources, but he also left behind many benefits. For example, the various pills purchased by the various sects would definitely increase the overall strength of the younger generation, which would have a far-reaching impact. Thousands of years later, historians would leave behind this in the historical records, merit in the present, benefit in the future. The vast universe was endless. In the distant star spirit realm, battleships flew out one after another. Captain. A subordinate stood on the starry sky map in the cockpit with a serious expression. The main battleship of the First Fleet was destroyed in the upper realm. Why did it suddenly activate and travel through the universe? Very simple. The silver-haired man sitting on the chair played with a wine glass and said calmly, someone repaired it and mastered the method to activate it. According to the previous news, could the mecha technology of the sect of all times in the upper realm be theirs? Most likely. The captain took a sip of wine and said, lock onto the position of the main battleship. Locked onto. How long until we meet? About a year. The captain gently put down the wine glass and smiled coldly. For the sake of Gu Tianqing, we did not go against the upper realm. Now that they have taken the initiative to come out, they can't blame the star spirit realm. Whoosh! Whoosh! Dozens of battleships cut through the void and traveled at high speed. Jun Changshao did not know that the Eternal he left the upper realm on and traveled through the endless universe, sending out some kind of signal at any time and place, which was captured by the star spirit realm. At this moment, he was sitting in the cockpit, considering whether to enter the third plane. Patriarch. Yi Xingqian said, I'm willing to go down and investigate. Every plane was equivalent to a new map and a new dungeon. If he always let the Patriarch go in alone, how could he slowly become stronger through experience? Okay. Jun Changshao thought for a while and said, you go. Whoosh! Under the powerful cover of the Patriarch's power, Yi Xingqian broke through the plane's spatial barrier and landed in the wilderness like a Terminator. Then, he was surrounded by a group of martial artists in different clothes. "Humph." A bearded man said, "Demonis, are these the reinforcements you called for?" Yi Xingqian frowned slightly. There were thousands of martial artists gathered here. They were not surrounding him, but a heavily injured purple-clothed woman. "Sorry. I'm just passing by." Yi Xingqian tidied his clothes and strode out. Hero saving the beauty? No way. Chapter 1689. Everyone felt that Jun Changshao was very straightforward, but in fact, Yi Xingqian was even more straightforward. It was mainly because he spent most of his time on cultivation and didn't have the chance to show it, allowing Gou Sheng to steal the limelight. Today, he was sent to a foreign plane and witnessed thousands of martial artists besieging an injured woman, but he actually pretended not to see it and left. Gou Sheng might care about his worldview, but Yi Xingqian definitely didn't. He was even harmed by Empress Ling Yao in his previous life, so he still had a severe prejudice against women. Thinking about it carefully, this guy might have acknowledged the sect of all times and treated himself as a member, but he rarely interacted with Lu Qianqian, Lu Wanshi, and the other female disciples. Most of the time, he was with the male disciples, such as Shao Ziji, Li Qingyang, or the Spirit Beast Hall. Yi Xingqian wanted to leave, but he couldn't. The surrounding martial artists immediately tightened their encirclement and released their cultivation while glaring at him. "Kid!" A martial artist coldly said, "You dare to help the demonic woman? You will die. Go! Kill him!" Dozens of martial artists standing at the front rushed over. All kinds of energy burst out, forming a scene that could be described as powerful. Trash! Yi Xingqian's face was filled with disdain. He didn't want to be the hero saving the damsel in distress, and he didn't want to be bitten by mosquitoes and flies. So, all he could do was, boom. The violent energy suddenly exploded, and under the howling wind, corpses and blood were crazily splattered. The scene was so cruel that it was forced to be pixelated. Plop! The last attacking martial artist fell to the ground and lost all signs of life. His eyes were filled with horror. It was obvious that he didn't expect this ordinary-looking man to be so powerful until his death. Yi Xingqian stood proudly in his original position. His elegant black hair fluttered in the wind, and his stern face flashed with killing intent. He looked like a devil that walked out from hell. This was the serious style, the main character. Gou Sheng. Learn from him. The dozens of people that rushed over were instantly obliterated, and the remaining martial artists widened their eyes. The reinforcements that the demonic woman asked for weren't simple. Scram! Yi Xingqian said coldly. Just a single word contained an extremely powerful pressure, causing all of the martial artists present to feel their hair stand on end. All of them fled as fast as they could. They were very lucky. After joining the sect of all times, Yi Xingqian had changed quite a bit. If it had been his cold personality from his previous life, he would have killed anyone who provoked him. Swish! Swish! Spatial rings flew out from the corpses and landed in Night Emperor's hands. He was too lazy to check what was inside and was about to leave. Thank you for your help, Your Excellency. The injured woman struggled to stand up. Her face was extremely pale. It was obvious that her injuries were very serious. Yi Xingqian said indifferently, I just don't want to be bothered by flies. I'm not trying to save you. Don't overthink it. Compared to this guy, Gou Sheng had become a warm guy. The injured woman didn't say anything else. She dragged her injured body into the depths of the forest, but after a few steps, she couldn't support herself anymore and fainted on the ground. Many martial artists had died in this area. Fresh blood floated into the forest and gradually attracted many ferocious beasts. After confirming that there was no danger, they came out one after another. Food! All of it was food. A few ferocious beasts that looked like wolves took the lead and stopped in front of the unconscious woman. Their eyes were glowing red, and their saliva was about to flow out. Martial artists like to kill ferocious beasts because of the crystal cores in their bodies. Ferocious beasts also like to kill martial artists because their flesh and blood had been nourished by attributes. After consuming them, their strength would increase. Roar! After a short hesitation, the few wolf beasts opened their bloody mouths and pounced over. Boom! Suddenly, a violent shockwave was generated, causing dust to roll up. Ta! Yi Xingqian, who had already left, appeared in front of the injured woman. He released his force of true spirit and lifted her up without any mercy. Then, he disappeared into the dust. He came in a hurry and left in a hurry. Night. The bright moon hung high in the sky, and stars filled the sky. Yi Xingqian sat cross-legged outside the cave, circulating the Greater Thousand Shadows art. When he was not in the picture, he was usually either cultivating or on the road of cultivation. Phew! After an hour, Yi Xingqian exhaled a mouthful of turbid air and said to himself, "Why did I save a stranger?" He could have left during the day, but he did not know why he returned and saved the injured woman who had fallen into the wolf's mouth. He also gave her a lot of healing pills. "You have saved my life again." The purple-clothed woman walked out of the cave. Because she had taken the pill, her face had regained its color, and her injuries were under control. With the help of the night light, it could be seen that she was about 20 years old. Her appearance was delicate and refined, and she could be considered a great beauty. "So," Yi Xingqian said lightly, "what benefits do you want to give me?" His hesitant personality towards women was definitely not influenced by Jun Changshao, but he had to talk about rewards in return. It was definitely related to Go Sheng. This was something that no one could wash away. "What benefits do you want?" the woman in purple asked. Night Emperor was surrounded by an arrogant aura, but she could calmly deal with it. It was obvious that she was not an ordinary person. "Money. Resources. I want all of them." Yi Xingqian was not polite at all. The woman in purple said, "The reason why I am being chased is because I obtained a treasure map that has been sealed for a long time. If you can find it, there should be what you need." "You mean, you have nothing now?" "No." "Phew." Yi Xingqian raised his hand, and his force of true spirit erupted as he grabbed the woman's neck. "You want to kill me? You have no value. There is no meaning in living." This treasure map was left behind by a powerhouse who was regarded as a legend 100,000 years ago. There are all kinds of martial arts and resources hidden in it. If you and I can find it, it will be of great value. The woman in purple calmly took out an ancient sheepskin scroll. "Kill you?" Yi Xingqian said lightly, "I can find it too." In terms of treasure hunting, he also had experience. After all, he had been to the Taixien cave and done the uncivilized act of Night Emperor. The woman in purple said, "Without my help, you can't find the treasure." After a moment of silence, Yi Xingqian let go of the woman. He had already taken a look at the sheepskin scroll. It was obviously very old. Perhaps there really was a great treasure hidden in it. He volunteered to come to this plane. If he could find a large amount of martial arts resources, he could report back to the patriarch when he returned. "What is your name?" Yi Xingqian was gloomy. He had clearly acted very ferociously, but this woman had been very calm from beginning to end. Seeing that he was silent, the woman in purple wisely didn't pursue the matter. She introduced herself. "I am Jia Lingyao." "You?" Yi Xingqian suddenly turned his head, and said in a hoarse voice, "What is your name?" Murderous intent surged out of his body. Although he had killed Empress Lingyao on the spot and burned her to ashes, hearing the two words Lingyao still greatly stimulated his nerves. "Jia Lingyao." Clang! He unsheathed his 3-foot-long sword and placed it on the woman's neck. Chapter 1690. Yi Xingqian's murderous intent was triggered when he saw the purple-robed woman named Jia Lingyao. Clang! He unsheathed his sword and held it to his neck. At that moment, the killing intent around the Night Arch was extremely powerful. He had always been suspicious. Empress Lingyao's death was too simple. Was there more to it than met the eye? Now that he had coincidentally saved a woman with a name similar to hers, could it be? What do you mean? Jia Lingyao frowned. She could feel the murderous intent, but she remained calm. It was admirable. This made Yi Xingchen even more suspicious. He said coldly, "Who are you? Why did you approach me?" Jia Lingyao was speechless. "You were the one who saved me, so how did I get close to you on purpose?" "It doesn't matter if you don't tell me," Yi Xingchen said, "because you're about to die." Did anyone notice that this guy had suddenly become talkative? That was because he had been wondering whether or not Empress Lingyao was dead, and that had caused his mind to be in a mess. "Why do you want to kill me?" Jia Lingyao asked. "Because," Yi Xingchen suddenly fell silent. The reason for killing her was because of the name Lingyao, but it seemed a bit ridiculous to say it out loud. In this universe where people used Huaxia as their surnames and Chinese characters as their names, there were too many people with the same name. Erasing her for this went against the Sect of all times' mission. Jun Changshao often instilled in his disciples the idea that if others didn't offend him, he wouldn't offend them. Naturally, Starry Night couldn't help but be influenced by it, so in the end, he withdrew the sword that was 0.01 centimeters away from his neck. Night Emperor. He was indecisive. Jia Lingyao muttered to herself, "Are all strong people so strange?" She didn't know Yi Xingchen, but after seeing him fight yesterday, she was sure that he was a top expert. Perhaps he could help her find the treasure on the sheepskin scroll. "What's your name?" "You've asked. But you didn't tell me." "Pei Aniu." Jia Lingyao's expression changed. Such a powerful person actually had such a down-to-earth name. "Mr. Pei shouldn't be a cultivator of my heaven spill world, right? Don't talk so much nonsense, just focus on leading the way." Yi Xingchen's face was filled with anger. Clearly, he did not want to waste his breath on this woman. Jia Lingyao stopped and said seriously, "I have the secret of the treasure. The entire plane knows about it. I will inevitably run into trouble when I look for it this time, so, shwa." Suddenly, Yi Xingchen gathered strength in his right fist and punched out. Jia Lingyao's face changed slightly. She could see his movements, but her cultivation did not allow her to dodge. Boom! In an instant, Yang Kai's right fist, which had gathered explosive power, flew past Jia Lingyao and smashed into the void. The cultivator who was hiding in the void, intending to launch a sneak attack, was immediately blasted away, blood spurting from his mouth as he fell heavily to the ground, the hidden weapons in his hands scattering everywhere. "Sneaky," Yi Xingchen said coldly. Jia Lingyao first heaved a sigh of relief, then looked at the cultivator who had been blasted away. She frowned slightly and said, "Even the Wu-Tang people are tempted." Swish! Swish! At this moment, the sound of wind breaking rang out from afar. All kinds of hidden weapons flew over wildly, covering a wide range. Yi Xingchen grabbed Jia Lingyao's shoulder and pulled her in front of him. Then, he elegantly dodged the rain of bullets. The scene was just like a movie. Ding! 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 The hidden weapons missed and nailed to the mountain rocks and trees. Their surface was reddish-black and should have been poisoned. Shwa! Yi Xingchen gracefully stabilized his body while Jia Lingyao was shaken until she was dizzy. Shwa! Shwa! At this moment, a group of ninja-like cultivators dressed in black flew over from afar. There were about 100 of them, and they held poisonous hidden weapons in their hands. Their eyes were cold and murderous. Demonis! The leader of the group said in a deep voice, "Hand over the treasure map and you will be spared from death." Jia Lingyao said, "I found it. Why should I hand it over?" Her tone was very angry. It was not because she wanted to hand over the treasure map, but because she had never done anything evil. Why was she labeled as a demoness when she was born? If you don't hand it over, you will die. Before the leader could finish his words, his eyes were filled with horror because Yixingchen appeared in front of him with a 3-foot-long sword on his neck. This treasure map is mine. No one can touch it. Poochie. Sizzle. A head flew up and blood splattered. Boss. Seeing the leader's head being separated from his body, the subordinates were horrified. Swish. 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 Suddenly, a dense sword light burst out, not giving them a chance to react at all. In the end, all of them had their throats cut open. Clang! Yixingchen sheathed his sword. Plop! Plop! 100 martial artists knelt on the ground in a daze, their heads slowly falling. TSK TSK. In the main battleship, Jun Changshao watched Yixingchen kill 100 people through the real-time image provided by the light screen. He said with emotion, "My disciple is indeed decisive." Su Xiaoma held his chin and said, "It's hard to imagine that the cold junior brother Yi would be a hero saving a beauty." I knew it. Li Qingyang smiled and said, "Junior brother Yi is kind." Hearing everyone's words, the system finally couldn't help but roar, "The plot now belongs to Yixingchen. Don't jump out and steal the show." Sky Spill Realm. After Yixingchen dealt with the Wu-Tang ninjas, he skillfully took out the spatial ring on his body and said lightly, "Let's go." Oh. Jia Lingyao hurriedly followed, feeling very shocked. The group of Wu-Tang ninjas were obviously not weak, but they were all wiped out in the blink of an eye. How strong was he? According to the mark on the sheepskin scroll, the treasure was hidden in the primitive mountain range in the northernmost region, so the two of them didn't speak and spent the entire time on the road. In the meantime, various forces appeared one after another, trying to snatch it. Without Yixingchen, Jia Lingyao definitely wouldn't be able to protect it with her strength. But now, everyone who came died. The whole process could be considered frightening but not dangerous. Friend, spare me, boom. Before a powerhouse sent by a certain force could finish speaking, Yixingchen slammed him to the ground and his body was torn apart. Domineering and cruel. In fact, if they came to snatch it openly, they might have been able to survive. But they had to hide in the dark and play dirty tricks, which greatly stimulated Night Emperor's killing intent. Jia Lingyao, who was behind him, had a look of admiration. She had only known this man for about a chapter, but she had already been completely subdued by his valiant strength. Have we arrived? Jia Lingyao came back to her senses and hurriedly took out the sheepskin scroll. Based on the map and the terrain, she said, "Go north. You'll reach it after walking for about 1,000 miles. Stop wasting time." Yixingchen said, "Let's go quickly." The two of them walked north. Strangely, they didn't encounter any more sneak attacks, and the atmosphere became relatively calm. They might have realized that Mr. Pei is powerful, so they don't dare to come to their deaths, Jia Lingyao said to herself. The next day, the two of them walked to the edge of the primitive mountain range. However, they didn't enter because thousands of martial artists from various forces were gathered at the entrance. Jia Lingyao guessed correctly. After losing many of their companions, these people had recognized Yixingchen's strength. Naturally, they didn't dare to surround him, but they didn't give up. Instead, they mobilized people and gathered in advance at the only way. If 10 or 100 of them can't deal with you, what about 1,000 or 10,000? I have the numbers, so I can do whatever I want. This is troublesome. Jia Lingyao frowned when she saw so many people from various forces. Crack! 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 Suddenly, a strange sound was heard. She instinctively turned her head and saw Yixingchen surrounded by flowing light, gradually condensing into a battle armor. A majestic halberd was placed in front of him, and he seemed to have turned into an unparalleled warrior on the battlefield. His eyes were cold as he said, "I'm going to start a massacre. Get out of my way." Chapter 1691. Tens of thousands of people from the various factions of the Sky Spill world gathered at the path of the treasure, waiting for an opportunity to appear. Someone would ask. Since they knew the location, why did they still want the sheepskin scroll? Without it, they couldn't enter at all. Whoosh! Whoosh! The warriors gathered in a huge formation, and the air was filled with killing intent. To show respect, Yi Xingqian activated the special effect, donned his armor, and took out his halberd. Mr. Pei. Jia Lingyao was stunned. Then, she said weakly, "Why are there words on your forehead?" Yi Xingqian wanted to raise his hand to cover the word attack on his forehead. To be honest, he was quite depressed. After changing to the perfect body created by the demon ancestor, he had also inherited the special effect of the words. It was fine if it came, but it was still on his forehead. On the other hand, Li Qingyang, Xiao Ziji, and the others were all on the back of their hands. Why am I more special than them? Cut the crap. Yi Xingqian said coldly, "Get lost." Okay. Jia Lingyao hurriedly retreated far away. Without this obstructing woman, Yi Xingqian's gaze became even colder. He raised his halberd and said, "Those who want to die, come." Since the sheepskin scroll contained the treasure, he wouldn't give it to anyone. Therefore, he could only start a massacre today. One person against tens of thousands. At that moment, Night Emperor inherited the strength of the Patriarch. It's not worth it to become enemies with the world for a demoness. An expert from a certain faction said. The warriors of the Sky Spill world knew more about Jia Lingyao. They had never heard of her having any strong helpers, so they guessed that this man had been bewitched recently. Of course. Everyone agreed that he had been tempted by her beauty. After all, if he really wanted the treasure, he could just snatch it. There was no need to protect her. In short, in the eyes of the Sky Spill world warriors, Yi Xingqian was nothing more than infatuated with beauty. Friend. Someone advised earnestly, lust is a knife above the character. Please turn back and be saved. Yi Xingqian's killing intent intensified. He wasn't an idiot. He could naturally guess what the other party imagined him to be. Me. Night Emperor. Would he be that kind of person? Who? Yi Xingqian did not try to defend himself, because this was not his character. Therefore, he directly brandished his Fangtian halberd and jumped over to attack. It was easy to cut down a bunch of obstructing weeds. Swish, the halberd that was infused with energy pressed down with a momentum that could sweep away an entire army. The aura it formed could be said to be earth-shattering, frightening all the cultivators present. Retreat! Retreat! Boom, 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 boom. Before he finished speaking, a violent force exploded in the crowd. All the martial artists were instantly sent flying. In slow motion, it was as if they had turned into dandelions dancing in the sky. The scene was magnificent. Jia Lingyao had seen Yi Xingqian in action before, so she had prepared herself in advance. But when she saw him killing his way through an army of tens of thousands, she was still stunned. Too strong. This man was too strong. Yi Xingqian's every move during the battle was deeply imprinted in her heart. Puchi! Puchi! Light flashed, and limbs flew everywhere. In just a few moments, thousands of Sky Spill world cultivators had fallen. Facing this man who was exuding a majestic aura and killing intent, the remaining cultivators were frightened and could only desperately retreat. Swish! Swish! Suddenly, a stream of light bypassed Yi Xingqian and rushed toward Jia Lingyao. The various factions' purpose of intercepting this time was to snatch the sheepskin scroll that led to the location of the treasure. Naturally, they would not fight with the other party, so they had to capture the main target first. Who? That expert's movement technique was very fast. His energy turned into a large hand and pressed down. However, just as he was about to bind Jia Lingyao, a terrifying wave of air suddenly appeared behind him. Not good. His expression changed. Puchi, without any chance to react, his body was quickly pierced by the stream of light. He was stabbed into the ground 10 feet away from Jia Lingyao. When the light dissipated, the blood-stained halberd was revealed. "Great Elder!" A cultivator in the crowd roared. "Everyone, this kid has lost his weapon. We must finish him off in one go." An old man shouted, instantly igniting everyone's fighting spirit. In their opinion, Yi Xingqian was so fierce because of his equipment. Now that they threw out the halberd and swarmed him, they would definitely be able to kill him. Kill! Kill! The various factions' cultivators' morale soared. They gathered all kinds of energy and charged over, forming a dazzling light. Trash! Yi Xingqian raised his hand and said coldly, "All of you must die." Boom! 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 In an instant, the Sect of all Times' heaven-crossing palm print covered the entire sky and pressed down with a tremendous force. The halberd was only useful for Yi Xingqian to harvest the weeds. Without this weapon, he could still use other methods to solve the problem. On Eternal, which was docked outside the Sky Spill world, Jun Changshao and the others had been watching the scene of Yi Xingqian killing everyone. Patriarch Xiao Ziji said worriedly, "Should we go and help junior brother Yi?" He didn't want to steal Yi Xingqian's scene, but at this moment, facing tens of thousands of people, he would be in danger if he wasn't careful. "No need," Jun Changshao said. Gou Xing still thought highly of Yi Xingqian. After all, he was the absolute representative of the Sect of all Times. If he couldn't even deal with a group of core transformation realm enemies, it would be too disappointing. Of course. Although he thought highly of Yi Xingqian, he still had to prepare defensive measures. As long as Yi Xingqian was in danger, he would definitely rush to the scene immediately. If those cultivators who were fighting for the sheepskin scroll knew that there were 11 battleships in the universe, and that everyone inside was talented and had good words, they would definitely collapse into despair. Outside the primitive mountain range, the smell of blood was thick. Corpses were strewn everywhere, making it look like a cruel slaughterhouse. Most of the cultivators from the various factions who had come to intercept Yi Xingqian had died, and the rest had fled in fear. Time, 1 hour. Jia Lingyao stood in the distance in a daze, her clear eyes looking at the back of the figure standing proudly among the corpses. She was completely shocked. Is this a human? Swish! At this moment, the halberd stuck in the ground flew up on its own and landed beside Yi Xingqian. He grabbed it with one hand and said indifferently, "The annoying flies have been dealt with. Let's go." Jia Lingyao calmed herself down and walked over the corpses. The two entered the primitive mountain range through the entrance, not talking at all. "Mr. Pei." After a long time, Jia Lingyao said, "These factions won't let this go. Why don't we wait for a while before looking for the treasure?" "No." Yi Xingqian said, "We'll look for it now." Jia Lingyao was silent for a moment before saying, "All right." She took out the sheepskin scroll and walked for an hour in the primitive forest according to the coordinates and the map. She stopped at an ancient ruin covered in vines and moss. "Mr. Pei." After comparing, Jia Lingyao said, "This is the location of the treasure." With that, she wandered around the ruin on her own. "Mr. Pei." Not long after, Jia Lingyao said, "I found the entrance to the treasure." Yi Xingqian heard the news and hurried over. Seeing her stop in front of a stone wall, he instinctively looked over and was instantly dumbfounded. The dilapidated stone wall looked a little old, but the carvings were clearly visible. There was a person sitting on a throne, and people were worshipping him. The words were, "Under the heavens, all land belongs to the king. All the people on the land are the king's subjects." Chapter 1692. All the lands under the heavens belong to the emperor, and all the people on the shores of the land are the emperor's subjects. The words written in Empress Ling Yao's will appeared on the dilapidated stone wall, causing the atmosphere to turn eerie. Of course. There was a difference. Judging from the handwriting, it wasn't written by the empress. When Yi Xingqian heard these words, Not only was he stunned on the spot, killing intent gradually appeared in his eyes. It was mentioned in the suicide note. Now that the stone wall had reappeared, could it be related to her? Mr. Pei. Jia Lingyao said weakly, are you okay? Whoosh! Suddenly, the power of the true spirit exploded, turning into a hand that locked her neck. Yi Xingchen said coldly, names can be coincidental, but words can't be. Tell me, why did you bring me here? Jia Lingyao was restrained by the true spirit hand, and her breathing became difficult. Tell me what. She brought Night Emperor to find the treasure because she wanted him to be strong. She didn't have any ill intentions. You are Empress Lingyao. This is all part of your plan. Yi Xingchen seemed to be losing control of his emotions, and he used more strength. Jia Lingyao wanted to speak, but she couldn't. She could only tell him that she was in pain with tears gathering at the corner of her eyes. Suddenly, the pattern on the stone wall flashed and covered the two of them. Then, they disappeared. Whoosh! Whoosh! A cold wind blew and filled the ruins as if nothing had happened. Patriarch! Shangwan Xinyao exclaimed in the cockpit of Eternal. Senior brother Ye's aura is gone. Drip, drip. The sound of water dripping could be heard in the dark environment. Whoosh! Suddenly, a stream of light appeared out of thin air, illuminating the surroundings and presenting a scene similar to a stone tunnel. Yi Xingchen's expression was a little dull. He was just standing by the stone wall, strangling that woman. Why did the scene change? Cough, cough. Jia Lingyao's face was red as she stood at the side. There were obvious scratches on her neck. If it weren't for the sudden sound, she would have suffocated. Yi Xingchen did not pay any attention to it. He used his spiritual senses to capture everything around him and found that it was difficult to operate, as if it was restricted by some kind of power. What is this place? Looking at Jia Lingyao, his tone and gaze were exceptionally cold. At this moment, Night Emperor guessed that his sudden arrival in an unfamiliar environment had something to do with this woman. It was to the extent that everything was a trap, waiting for him to jump into it. Yi Xingchen couldn't be blamed for being too cautious. He could only blame his hatred for Empress Lingyao for being so intense that he was on the verge of becoming schizophrenic. After Jia Lingyao was relieved, she took out the sheepskin scroll and found that the original pattern on it had been replaced by a new one. After comparing it with the surrounding environment, she said, "This should be a treasure trove. Give it to me." Yi Xingchen snatched the sheepskin scroll from him. Something strange happened. When this object fell into his hand, the brand new pattern instantly became blurry, and he couldn't see its contents at all. Jia Lingyao said, "This thing is just a blank piece of paper in the hands of others. It can only be used in my hands." Yi Xingchen was displeased, but he still tossed the sheepskin scroll over. As expected. After Jia Lingyao caught it, the blurry image became clear. "Lead the way," Yi Xingchen said with a straight face. At this moment, he was completely focused on the treasure trove. As for this woman and Empress Lingyao, he would think about it after he found them. After changing the pattern on the sheepskin scroll, it happened to be similar to the surrounding environment, so Jia Lingyao followed the path through the cave and soon arrived at a rather large stone chamber. It was very empty. There was nothing inside. Where's the treasure trove? Yi Xingchen frowned and muttered to himself, "Is this woman trying to trick me? Look at the map." Jia Lingyao said, "This isn't the end." With that, she walked to the end of the stone chamber, where many stone doors of the same size appeared, exactly the same as the ones on the map. "Let's go through the middle door." Jia Lingyao carefully studied the sheepskin scroll, then got up and walked to the stone door with the word "middle" carved on it. Yi Xingchen followed closely behind, maintaining absolute vigilance. He was afraid that this woman would suddenly run away if he wasn't careful. Jia Lingyao seemed to see through him. "There may be traps here. You don't have to worry about me running away. If I run into trouble, I'll need your help to resolve it." Yi Xingchen gradually relaxed. Indeed. If there was danger here, with this woman's strength, she would definitely die if she dared to run away. To put it bluntly, Yi Xingqian needed Jia Lingyao's guidance to find the treasure, and Jia Lingyao needed Yi Xingqian's strength to find the treasure. The two of them were grasshoppers on the same rope. Also, I'm not the Empress Lingyao you speak of. If you have any grudges against her, please don't blame it on me just because our names are similar. He had mentioned Empress Lingyao just now, so Jia Lingyao remembered. Tch, Yi Xingqian snorted. The two of them walked along the middle door, and then found themselves in a maze-like environment. If it were anyone else, even if they were lucky enough to find the entrance, they would definitely be confused because every few steps they took would lead to a crossroad. Who knew if they would be trapped if they took the wrong path? There were clear directions on the sheepskin scroll. Jia Lingyao led Yi Xingqian through it and soon arrived at a stone room. This place was very different from before. The floor was paved with special stone slabs that looked as smooth as a mirror. Stomp! Yi Xingqian stepped on it, and there were ripples under his feet. Oh no! He realized that something was wrong and was about to withdraw his foot when a special energy surged into his mind. He stood there dumbfounded. Swoosh! In the exquisite room, Yi Xingqian suddenly got up from the bed. The pain from his wound made his expression slightly hideous. You haven't recovered yet. Don't move around. A gentle voice came to his ear. Hearing this, Yi Xingqian's eyes gradually widened. Then, he turned his head stiffly and saw a graceful and beautiful woman sitting by the bed. Who? Empress Lingyao. Wasn't she killed by him? How is she still alive? No. Yi Xingqian tried to calm himself down. Only then did he realize that he was in the same room that he had lived in back then. And the wound on his chest. Wasn't it caused when he fought with the other martial emperors? Knight Emperor was shocked. Back in the past, Empress Lingyao brought him a bowl of medicine and said bitterly, "Is martial arts more important than me in your heart?" Smack! Yi Xingqian knocked over the bowl of medicine and said coldly, "When I find the Taishan Sutra, I'll beat Du Yinqing and the others to the ground." Damn it! I wanted to say that this woman is vicious. Why did I repeat what I said before? Yi Xingqian was frustrated. I understand now. Empress Lingyao stood up and said sadly, "In your heart, martial arts will always be more important than me. If there's a next life, I hope you can change this personality. Martial arts is not the only thing in this world. There are many things that you need to cherish and protect." As she spoke, Empress Lingyao turned into a sharp dagger and stabbed Yi Xingqian in the chest. The process was not fast. However, Knight Emperor's body seemed to be bound and he could not dodge. He only managed to grab the dagger when he felt the excruciating pain. You! Mr. Pei! Mr. Pei! Jia Lingyao's voice pulled Yi Xingqian back to reality. It was like a dream, a nightmare from the past. You're hurting me. Yi Xingqian realized that he was not grabbing the dagger but Jia Lingyao's hand. He quickly shook it off and turned around. Where's the treasure? Chapter 1693. Yi Xingqian had just had a very realistic dream, as if he had been there. But, why did he dream of the past, of Empress Lingyao? Standing in the mirror-like stone chamber, Yi Xingqian was still thinking about the scene he had just experienced. He remembered every word clearly, and his mind was in a mess. There was one thing he couldn't deny. In his previous life, he had valued martial arts too much. After his rebirth, he had become a disciple of the Sect of all times. He had slowly come to understand that there were many things in this world that needed to be cherished and protected. Yi Xingqian's expression became more and more ferocious. The more he agreed with Empress Lingyao's words in the dream, the angrier he became. Did this mean that she was trying to kill him to change her personality and mentality from her previous life? Gotcha! He clenched his fists tightly. Yi Xingqian hated Empress Lingyao to the core, so he would not accept any way to clear his name. Mr. Pei, what's wrong with you? Jia Lingyao was very worried that he had just pulled this man out of his painful state, and now he was acting so ferocious. Phew! Yi Xingqian exhaled and relaxed his fists. He still had to find the treasure, so why should he care about a dead woman? You didn't enter the dream just now. Dream? Jia Lingyao was confused. Yi Xingqian did not speak, but he was confused. Obviously, when he had stepped on the stone chamber floor, he had triggered some kind of restriction and entered the dream. Why wasn't this woman affected? Could it be that it did not work on low-level martial artists? Let's go. Yi Xingqian adjusted his state of mind and continued forward with Jia Lingyao. On the other side of the stone chamber, there was another long tunnel, and there were many traps in it. For example, poisonous arrows, fire and poison, and falling rocks. You could think of any kind of trap, but they were all here. It was obvious how low-level the designer was. Ding ding ding. Ding ding ding. Flying daggers came flying at him, but Yi Xingqian ignored them completely. He strode forward, his eyes full of disdain. This level of mechanism was only a threat to martial artists with low cultivation. For someone in the truth-seeking realm like him, it was not even an itch. Amazing. Jia Lingyao, who was carefully following behind, had a look of worship on her face. She had completely turned into a fangirl. Surrounded by various forces, her life and death could be said to be on the line. Suddenly, a powerful martial artist appeared and saved her from danger. He even protected her and helped her search for treasures. With such a melodramatic and romantic plot, which girl could withstand it? After passing through a tunnel filled with mechanisms, another stone room appeared. Inside, there were 8 large pillars with lifelike carvings of birds and beasts. It gave off the feeling of a palace. This should be the end, Jia Lingyao said. Yi Xingqian could not use his spiritual senses to probe, so he could only rely on his naked eyes to look deeper. However, he did not find any treasure, so he frowned and said, "Are you playing with me?" Along the way, he had patiently protected this woman in order to find the treasure and contribute to the sect. But in the end, it was empty. This shouldn't be the case. Jia Lingyao carefully looked at the sheepskin scroll again and confirmed that the end point was here. I hate being lied to, especially by women, Yi Xingqian said coldly. If you return empty-handed, you will die without a complete corpse. Jia Lingyao said, maybe there's a secret room hidden here. We can look for it carefully. With that, she walked into the stone room first. Crack! After a few steps, the stone floor under her feet caved in. Suddenly, a boulder carrying some kind of power fell from the ceiling. The color drained from Jia Lingyao's face as she subconsciously turned to look. Boom! Yi Xingqian had already appeared in front of her, holding the boulder firmly with one hand. Thank you. Get out of my way. Jia Lingyao hurriedly moved aside. The caved-in stone floor under her feet recovered, and the power enveloping the boulder gradually dissipated. Yi Xingqian could easily shake it off, but he still put it in his space ring. The reason was that the material of the stone was extraordinary. He would bring it back to Master Fan. Mr. Pei. Jia Lingyao smiled. If you take this extraordinary stone, you won't return empty-handed, right? I'm here for treasure, not for a stone. Yi Xingqian roared. Good. This guy had been infected by Go Sheng. Whenever he was agitated, whenever he couldn't control his emotions, he would immediately turn into a roaring emperor. Pfft! Jia Lingyao covered her mouth and laughed. Ever since she met this man, he had always put on a cold face, as if everyone owed him money. Now that he finally changed his expression, it was actually quite cute. Was this cute? Wouldn't it be even more adorable if she saw how the Night Emperor ran to the livestock pen or the purple craggy Demon King's bed when he was drunk? Yi Xingqian turned around and said coldly, "Follow me." Oh. Jia Lingyao hurried over and asked, Mr. Pei, is Empress Lingyao your enemy? What does it have to do with you? When you mention her, I see a murderous look in your eyes. What does it have to do with you? Jia Lingyao tactfully shut her mouth and began to carefully observe the stone room. There were only a few large pillars inside, so the two of them quickly circled around and came to the conclusion that there was nothing. That can't be. Jia Lingyao looked at the parchment again and again and said, the treasure should be here. Soak it in water and burn it with fire. What if the pattern is ruined and the scroll is burned? It was indeed possible. Back then, Jun Changxiao's treasure hunting experience had been burned to ashes because he had imitated the plot of a television drama. Give it to me. Yi Xingchen said, I'll burn it. Jia Lingyao hesitated for a moment, then handed the sheepskin scroll over. Then, a strange scene occurred. When Yi Xingchen took the sheepskin scroll, the pattern on it suddenly glowed and lit up the entire stone room. Buzz! 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 Lines appeared on the stone floor under his feet and quickly spread throughout the stone room, as if it was an ancient array that had existed for a long time. All under heaven is the king's land, and all in the universe are the king's subjects. A loud and clear sound rang out abruptly. The originally empty stone room was enveloped by all kinds of lines, gradually forming into a magnificent hall. Yi Xingchen frowned. His gaze was fixed on the majestic throne in front of him because there was a man sitting on it. He wore a crown on his head and wore golden armor. He had an imposing appearance and was extraordinarily mighty. Below, 100 people knelt down. The shouts that echoed in the stone room came from their mouths. Mr. Pei! Jia Lingyao exclaimed, it's you. That's right. The mighty man's figure, facial features, and aura were exactly the same as Yi Xingchen's. Beside the throne sat a graceful and elegant woman. From her appearance, Jia Lingyao's expression gradually became sluggish. She said in disbelief, me? Chapter 1694. When Yi Xingchen took the sheepskin scroll, he seemed to have triggered some kind of restriction. The stone room instantly turned into a hall, and the glowing lines outlined a scene similar to a projection. The man sitting on the throne and the woman sitting beside him looked extremely similar to Yi Xingchen and Jia Lingyao, no matter how one looked at them. It was very magical and strange. What's going on? Yi Xingchen, who was in the projection, looked dazed. Me? Why am I here? Is it the same as before? Did I dream of the past? Impossible. Yi Xingchen immediately rejected this idea in his heart. There was no other reason. This body was created by the demon ancestor. It could not have happened in the past. As for what it looked like in the past, at least there was no scene of people kneeling before him. If it's not the past, then, the future. Thinking of this, Yi Xingchen's eyes flashed with anger. He could accept people kneeling before him in the future, but he could not accept Jia Lingyao, whom he had just met, sitting next to him. Based on their clothes and distance, it looked like, greetings, Night King. Greetings, Night Consort. The kneeling warriors shouted again, confirming Yi Xingchen's guess. Ah! Jia Lingyao covered her mouth in shock. Mr. Pei was the Night King, and she was the Night Consort. Did this mean that they were married? She had come to look for treasures, but now she saw this scene. Even if she had been through a lot, she might not be able to adapt. Whoosh! At that moment, the projection suddenly changed. The kneeling crowd gradually disappeared, and the hall was replaced by the back garden. The throne also changed into a unique stone pavilion. The Night King sat on the bench, and the Night Consort leaned gently in his arms. They looked like a couple in love. This public display of affection came a little unexpectedly. Xingchen. After a while, the Night Consort shyly whispered, "I'm pregnant." Is it a boy or a girl? The Night King blurted out. The Night Consort lightly punched his chest with her small fist and said, I'm just 2 months pregnant. You can't tell the gender yet. That's true, that's true. The Night King's reaction seemed to be a little too slow. He excitedly hugged her and said, "I'm going to be a father." Yi Xingqian, who was like a spectator, turned pale when he saw this. "I'm actually married to this woman, and we even have a child. Is this what will happen in the future?" Swish! At this moment, the projection changed again. This time, the scene was still set in the main hall, but there was only the Night King and a figure with his back to the camera. Without the Night Concubine, who was always by his side, it seemed that the novel couldn't bear to continue spreading dog food to the single readers. "Junior brother Yi, congratulations." The man with his back facing the camera cupped his hands and said. When Yi Xingqian heard this, his expression gradually stiffened. Then, he hurriedly took a few steps forward and gradually saw the other person's face clearly. He blurted out, "Xiao Ziji." Not bad. From his appearance alone, this person was extremely similar to the #1 tank in the sect of all times. The only difference was that he had a more mature temperament, and his exposed muscles seemed to contain infinite power. The patriarch, Keith, the Night King paused and said with difficulty, "Has he forgiven me?" Xiao Ziji said, "Junior brother's departure was a huge blow to the patriarch. It took a few hundred years for him to recover. Today, he ordered me to come here to wish you and sister-in-law a long life together and have many children. Leaving the sect for a woman, the patriarch can still forgive me, but it will only make me feel more guilty." The Night King said sadly. "Junior brother, there's no need to feel guilty." Xiao Ziji comforted, "The patriarch always said that everyone has different paths. Every time you cross a crossroad, you have to make your own choice. It's hard for others to interfere." Sigh. The Night King let out a long sigh, and the guilt and self-blame on his face became thicker. "Junior brother Yi," Xiao Ziji said, "the 12th Universal Sacred War is about to begin. Are you interested in fighting with your senior brother until the world turns upside down?" Universal Sacred War. The Night King's eyes flashed with memories. He smiled and said, "It's a nostalgic competition. Junior brother wants to participate." "Yes. That's great. If the patriarch knows, he will be very happy." Yi Xingqian's body heard their conversation, and his expression was very interesting. These projections could be considered to be in the future. Leaving the sect for a woman, this was nonsense. "That," Jia Lingyao said weakly, "isn't your surname Pei? Why did he call you Junior brother Yi? That's none of your business." Yi Xingqian's mind became more and more chaotic. He looked very angry. "Xiao." At this time, the projection changed again. The Night King was in front of a closed palace, anxiously pacing back and forth. From inside came the screams of a pregnant woman. Wah wah wah. Not long after, the baby's cries broke the silence of the night. "It's born!" The Night King was very excited. "I'm a father." Chapter 1695. The Night King had become a father. But the child didn't see it because the image stopped. Buzz! After a while, the space shook and the projection gradually collapsed until it returned to its original state. "That's it?" Jia Lingyao said blankly, her little face burning hot. The whole process didn't last long, but the image gave her too much information. Especially that she and Mr. Pei were married and had a child. Women. She was shy. Yi Xingqian fell silent. He knew that it was probably an array projection and could even happen in the future, but he couldn't rule out the possibility that it was fabricated. Married a woman and left the sect for her, Yi Xingqian clenched his fists and said firmly, "Impossible, it must be fabricated." Since his rebirth, the influence of the sect of all times on him was self-evident. No matter what happened in the future, he wouldn't leave. Night Emperor. He set a flag. As for whether he would be slapped in the face, that would depend on the future. So, what was more important now was, when the projection disappeared, Strange lines appeared on the floor in the center of the stone room and quickly formed a small array boundary. When it faded, a stone table appeared with a big box on it. Treasure? Yi Xingqian's eyes shone as he hurried over. When he got closer, he saw that the box was very exquisite. There was a lifelike portrait on it and the words, "All under the sky is the king's land. All in the universe are the king's subjects." These words were slightly different from the words left by Empress Lingyao, but the meaning was the same. Could it be that there was a connection? These words appeared frequently, making the Knight Darch think more and more. The more he thought, the more confused he became. Is this a treasure? Jia Lingyao walked over and looked at the box curiously. Get lost, Yi Xingqian said coldly. No matter what was in the box, it was definitely his. To put it bluntly, he had protected her all the way here for his own selfish desires. Oh. Jia Lingyao stepped back obediently, her eyes full of grievance. This man was like the other forces. He only cared about the sheepskin scroll and the treasure. Shua! Yi Xingqian raised his hand and used his power of true spirit to pry open the lock on the box. With a pop, the box opened, and a special aura that had been sealed for a long time appeared. To avoid poison, step back and hold your breath. In fact, the special aura that emerged was colorless, odorless, and poisonous. After confirming that there was no danger, Yi Xingqian took a step forward and peered into the box. He saw that there was an exquisite jade bottle inside, and underneath it was a piece of paper. After that, there was nothing else. This was the treasure. Knight Emperor frowned. In his opinion, although the box was small, there might be something mysterious about it. There were countless martial arts resources in it, and it could even be used as fuel to drive a battleship through the universe. Shua! With a gentle wave of his hand, an exquisite jade bottle and paper flew out. Throughout the entire process, Yi Xingqian maintained absolute vigilance, but until the two items stopped in front of him, no danger occurred. Awkward. He placed the piece of paper in front of him. There were bold and powerful words written on it. The content was, Taisha Creation Liquid. After consuming it, one's Dantian will be modified and one will possess Taisha Origin Energy. Taisha Creation Liquid. Taisha Origin Energy. Yi Xingqian's face was blank. This is a very special attribute. It is said that it can create a plane, Jia Lingyao said. Yi Xingqian was shocked. Creating a plane, how incredible. Legend, Jia Lingyao said. A long time ago, an expert came here and used Taisha Origin Energy to create the Heaven Evolution world. He was honored by later generations as the creator. Yi Xingqian looked calm on the surface, but he was shocked on the inside. He had seen with his own eyes that an expert like Gu Tianxing could destroy a fleet with a wave of his hand. But an expert who created a plane, no, he had already surpassed the level of an expert. He could be called a god. Jia Lingyao said, I didn't expect Taisha Origin Energy to be hidden here. If news of this spread to the outside world, it will definitely cause a huge commotion. Pa! Yi Xingqian opened the bottle, his eyes burning. Taisha Origin Energy. Just the name alone sounded amazing. Since he had obtained such an opportunity, he could not wait to use it. Can you leave some for me? Jia Lingyao asked in a pleading tone. No. Yi Xingqian said coldly. After he finished speaking, he lifted the exquisite jade bottle and gulped it down. It tasted sweet and was much better than the aptitude-changing liquid. Whoosh! Whoosh! The sweet liquid entered his body and instantly exploded with a special energy that quickly condensed in his dantian. Yi Xingqian's soul and body gradually separated. He floated in the endless dark universe like a ghost. Galaxies, meteorites, and planes floated before his eyes. It felt like he had jumped out of the three realms and was not part of the five elements. Taisha Origin Energy. Heaven and Earth Creation. Suddenly, a voice sounded in his ear. Whoosh! Yi Xingqian, whose soul was wandering in the universe, could clearly feel the special attribute gathering in his dantian, crazily spinning before gradually condensing into a purer and more profound energy. Outside the heaven evolution domain, Jun Changshao sat on the eternal and frowned. You still haven't caught the aura of the stars? No. Shangguan Xinyao was helpless. After Yixingqian's aura and the battleship were suddenly cut off, she had been searching hard, but she could not find him. It was as if he had disappeared from the world. Xiao Ziji said, Junior brother, you won't be in danger, right? Inform Elder Lu, Elder Sun, and Elder Bai Li, Jun Changshao said. Quickly enter this plane and search. Yes. Patriarch. As soon as the order was given, Shangguan Xinyao said in shock. Suddenly, a majestic energy appeared and enveloped the entire plane in a short time. How did she know? The light screen of the star map was displayed. At first, it was normal. Suddenly, a red light appeared and quickly spread in all directions. Strange. After seeing the situation on the map, Jun Changshao flew out of the eternal and forcibly merged with the sky spill world with his half-step celestial secret realm cultivation. Only when he felt the majestic aura did he say with certainty, someone is about to break through. The majestic attributes that enveloped the entire plane were the signs of a breakthrough. And from the profound meaning contained, it should be a breakthrough from the upper level to the peak of the truth-seeking realm. Whoosh! Jun Changshao released his spiritual sense and captured the location of the aura. Soon, he locked onto the ancient primitive mountain range and asked in surprise, it seeped out from the ground? In the stone room. Yixingqian sat cross-legged on the ground, releasing majestic attributes around him and floating along the stone slabs and soil to the outside world, to the entire sky spill world. From this, it could be seen. The so-called sign of a breakthrough came from him. After drinking a bottle of juice, he was about to break through to the peak of the truth-seeking realm. He really wanted to report this guy for cheating. Whoosh! 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 More and more pure attributes were released. Yixingqian, who was concealing his spirit in qi, suddenly felt his body become extremely hot, and his exposed skin gradually turned red. Hot! So hot! Whoosh! Whoosh! At the same time, an evil thought gushed out from his dantian and instantly occupied his consciousness, forcing him to open his eyes. His eyes gradually glowed like a wild beast's. Mr. Pei, what's wrong with you? Jia Lingyao hurriedly retreated because the other party had been staring at her since he opened his eyes. It made her panic. Swoosh! Yixingqian stood up. His whole body and eyes were red. The evil thought that occupied his consciousness had gathered in his body, and he had already lost his mind. Jia Lingyao became more and more flustered. She hurriedly turned around and fled into the tunnel. However, just as she took a step, a powerful energy roared and dragged her in front of Yixingqian, who seemed to have transformed into a beast. Mr. Pei! You! Don't do anything stupid! Pucci! The shadow on the stone room's wall could clearly be seen that pieces of clothes were scattered on the ground. Outside, Jun Changshao was already in the primitive mountain range where the energy emerged. In the ruins covered with vines and moss, he held his chin and said, the stars disappeared here. The system said, this place is quite strange. Is there a treasure here? Chapter 1696. Through increasing his aura, Jun Changshao managed to find the ruins where Yixingqian had been, and he guessed that there might be treasures there. But how could he find it? Jun Changshao began to wander around the ruins and soon found a stone wall with words carved on it. He raised his chin and said, it's the same as what was written in the will. He had read the will left behind by Empress Lingyao and had a deep impression of the so-called all under heaven. The handwriting is different. That's right. Jun Changshao also found that although the content was the same, the handwriting was strong and vigorous. It was obvious that the writer was a man. Why would the 16 words appear here? Could it be related to Empress Lingyao? Crack! Crack crack! At this moment, cracks began to appear on the stone wall, and then there was an explosion, revealing an entrance to the underground. Jun Changshao's eyes lit up and he jumped in without hesitation. Treasure! I'm coming! In the dark tunnel. The sound of water dripping could be heard. This familiar scene had happened before in Yixingchen's perspective, and now that Jun Changshao had come in through the entrance, it was as if he was experiencing it again. The difference was, Jia Lingyao had the sheepskin scroll to guide her, while Gou Sheng had nothing. Jun Changshao was not a problem. After all, he had experience in treasure hunting. He immediately raised his hand and released the power of the fire spirit to illuminate everything. Footprints? He quickly found the footprints left by Yixingchen and Jia Lingyao in the mud and frowned. Did someone come in early? The system said, there's Yixingchen's aura here. He should have just arrived. Is that so? Jun Changshao sighed in relief. Since his disciple had come in, he should keep the goodies within the family. Because of the footprints, Gou Sheng followed them and soon stopped in the first stone room. He said hesitantly, which way should we go? There were several stone doors in front of them. Engraved on them were the front door, middle door, back door, large door, small door, etc. Yixingchen and Jia Lingyao came here and chose the middle door according to the guidance of the sheepskin scroll. Take the back door. Without a tool to guide him, Jun Changshao made his choice based on his own preferences. There was a long tunnel behind the back door. There was no danger along the way, which made Gou Sheng secretly happy that he was on the right path. The end of the tunnel was connected to a stone chamber. There were many lifelike statues, and from their shapes, they seemed to be some kind of powerful demonic beast. Woo woo! A cold wind blew, and it was extremely gloomy. If it was someone else, they might have felt their hair stand on end. However, Jun Changshao, who had been through a lot, was not only calm, but he was even considering whether he should take the statue away and let Fan Yezi forge it. We can't go back empty-handed. Gou Sheng quickly came to a decision. He immediately walked in front of a statue and was about to put it into his spatial ring. Suddenly, the stone on the surface faded and turned into a living demonic beast. Roar! A roar that carried a foul stench resounded in the stone room. The hundreds of statues erected in the surroundings seemed to have been stimulated. They broke free from their petrified state and regained their vitality and consciousness. They bared their teeth and roared. Jun Changshao's mouth twitched. Roar! Roar! At this moment the awakened demonic beast rushed over, and a powerful murderous aura instantly gathered in the entire stone room. Sigh! Jun Changshao stood on the spot and shook his head. Wrong door. Then, he raised his hand, took out the green dragon crescent blade, and directly charged over. Boom! 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 Energy exploded, and light shone in all directions. After a while, Jun Changshao seemed to be possessed by Guanyu, standing proudly with his blade in hand. The demonic beast corpses and limbs were scattered under his feet, and bright crystal cores were scattered all over the ground. Blood gathered into a river. For others, choosing the wrong door meant death. For demonic beasts, this man choosing the wrong door meant death. After collecting all the crystal cores, Jun Changshao continued to move forward. Soon, he found an entrance in the stone chamber. Then, he encountered all kinds of immortal realms, which he easily resolved. It could be said that he was unimpeded all the way. He, who had stepped into the half-step celestial secret realm, was definitely an invincible existence in a low-level plane like the sky spill realm. Of course. Yixingchen, who had reached the upper level of the truth-seeking realm, was not weak here. However, his current situation was very bad. After taking the Taisher essence liquid, his body was extremely hot, and he was controlled by some evil thoughts. He had completely lost his mind. Half an hour later. Whoosh! 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 Yi Xingqian stood on the spot, holding his head and panting. The heat began to fade, and his red eyes gradually returned to normal. The evil thoughts in his sea of consciousness also began to fade. When the evil thoughts controlling his mind dissipated, his consciousness was completely clear. What's going on? Yi Xingqian tried hard to recall what had happened. He only remembered that he had taken the Taisher essence liquid. Wait! There was another kind of energy in his dantian. Yi Xingqian hurriedly probed into his body and found that it was a rather turbid energy, like a ball of mud. He released his spiritual senses and tried to communicate with it, but it ignored him. This, Yi Xingqian guessed, is this the Taisher essence force? Wait! Where are my clothes? Night Emperor finally realized that he was naked at the moment, and the expression on his face froze. He could understand why he had broken through to the peak of the truth-seeking realm. He could understand why he had special attributes. Why were his clothes gone? Did they evaporate when he broke through? No. There was no such situation when he broke through before. Just as Night Emperor was wondering, he accidentally glanced at the woman with messy black hair beside him. He instantly stood on the spot as if struck by lightning. The loose school uniform was draped over Jia Lingyao's body. She was lying on the ground with tears streaming down her face. This was the situation. Some things were inconvenient to describe. If everyone understood, don't ask too much. Yi Xingqian squatted beside her, his expression changing unpredictably. At this moment, if Go Sheng was present and handed him a cigar, he would definitely take it without hesitation to ease the turmoil in his heart. Why? Jia Lingyao cried, why? Yi Xingqian was silent. I also want to ask, why is this so? Finding the treasure, breaking through, and obtaining Taisher's elemental energy should have been a happy thing, but the current situation made him unhappy at all. He even wanted to kill her. I, Yi Xingqian, am not a lecher. Now that I have done such a thing, I can only protect my reputation by silencing her. Clang! The 3-foot-long sword was unsheathed. When the sword was 0.03 centimeters away from Jia Lingyao's neck, he did not make the move. Kill her to protect our dignity. You did something wrong, yet you still want to harm another life? Demons appeared on the left and angels on the right. Their persuasion made Yi Xingqian's face gradually turn ferocious. Boom! At this moment, the stone wall on the left suddenly exploded, and a person walked out of the billowing dust. Yi Xingqian's eyes widened in disbelief. Patriarch? That's right. The person who broke through the stone wall and walked in was Jun Changshao. This guy took the wrong path from the back door and should have been trapped, but he chose to follow the path and hit the wall when he met it. He arrived at the end in a daze. As expected. Jun Changshao patted the dust off his shoulder and smiled. You really came. As he spoke, he saw Yi Xingqian's bare upper body and a girl with disheveled hair lying on the ground in her school uniform. His smile froze. Although Gosheng was the #1 Iron Man of the Eternal Sect, there were some things that he naturally understood. Thus, he immediately guessed that the two people in the sealed stone room were not properly dressed. They must have done something inappropriate. Xingqian. Jun Changshao said, I didn't expect you to be this kind of person. Patriarch. Put down your sword. Yi Xingqian sheathed his sword, his expression extremely interesting. Jun Changshao's appearance and the situation, Night Emperor would not be able to clear his name today. Chapter 1697. Inside the stone room. Yi Xingqian squatted in front of the table, the frustration in his heart indescribable. Come. Jun Changshao passed him a cigar. Yi Xingqian broke down. Patriarch, I really didn't know. He only remembered taking the Taisher essence elixir. He had no idea what happened after that. That's not the point. Jun Changshao said, the point is that you did it. Yi Xingchen fell silent. Miss, please don't worry. Jun Changshao looked at the crying Jia Lingyao and said, every injustice has its perpetrator, and every debt has its debtor. He will take responsibility for you. Patriarch. There's no need to say anything. Jun Changshao interrupted. Let's go back to Eternal and have a make-up wedding. Since his disciple had done such a beastly thing, he would be worse than a beast if he didn't take responsibility. TSK, TSK. The system said, Rosa Flowers has been in the sect for so long, and she has always been doing her best to take care of the sect. I don't see the host taking responsibility like a man. Scram! Jun Chang scolded with a smile. Hearing the patriarch say that they should go back to Eternal to have a make-up wedding, Yi Xingchen almost vomited blood. Because of Empress Ling Yao, he was very resistant to women. How could he get married because of this? Moreover, the other party was still a suspect. Wait a minute. Even though the Taisher elemental elixir could help him raise his cultivation, could it be a trap set up by Empress Ling Yao? Was that why he was in this situation? That must be it. In order to avoid responsibility as much as possible, Yi Xingchen's imagination had already surpassed Jun Changshao's. One word to describe him, scumbag. A certain black dog said, Yi Xingchen hangs out with the patriarch all year round. A crooked stick will have a crooked shadow, so Go Sheng is also a scumbag. It's decided then. Jun Changshao said, come back with me. Patriarch. She isn't a disciple of the sect of all times. Yi Xingchen would never allow himself to bring this woman back. After all, if word of this were to spread to the ears of his fellow disciples, the image that he had set up over the years would instantly crumble. That makes sense. Jun Changshao took out the entry form and said, you have to become a disciple first. Yi Xingchen's blood rushed to his throat. Jia Lingyao didn't say anything from beginning to end. She continued to cry because what she had just experienced was too much for her body and soul. When Jun Changshao saw this, he said, we can do it when we get back. Then, he looked at Yi Xingchen and said, what are you waiting for? Hurry up and carry her. The orders of the patriarch had to be obeyed. Night Emperor came to Jia Lingyao with a straight face and picked her up reluctantly. Just from his expression alone, if there were any ignorant cultivators present, they would think that he had suffered a loss. Wait. Jun Changshao said, I'll walk around again. Yi Xingchen stood where he was with Jia Lingyao in his arms, his expression extremely ugly. However, when he felt that she was trembling and crying, and her tears soaked his clothes, he couldn't help but feel a trace of guilt. Of course. This guilt quickly disappeared. In Night Emperor's heart, she definitely had something to do with Empress Lingyao. The opportunity that she had obtained and the irrational things that she had done must have been deliberately arranged. Let's go. Before long, Jun Changshao walked over. He walked around in a circle and confirmed that there was nothing good. He could only put the stone platform and the box containing the Taisher elemental energy liquid into his spatial ring. After the three of them left, the stone room was empty except for bloodstains. After a while, the strange lines that seemed to be illuminating the surroundings gradually dimmed and the environment once again fell into endless darkness. In the hole in the ruins, Jun Changshao was the first to fly out. Yi Xingchen followed closely behind with Jia Lingyao in his arms, his expression still ugly. They were originally looking for treasure, but ended up having sex with her. This was unacceptable. Let's go. Jun Changshao said. Go? Suddenly, a loud voice sounded. Swoosh! 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 In an instant, dozens of martial artists flew over. They were wearing the same clothes and exuded a very strong aura. It was obvious that their cultivation was extraordinary. The leader was a middle-aged man in his 40s or 50s. He said coldly, how can you leave after killing my Wu-Tang's people? Swoosh! Swoosh! As soon as he finished speaking, dozens of martial artists flew over. From the different clothes, it could be seen that they should be from many forces. The signs of advancement just now had caused a huge commotion. The martial artists of the Heaven Spill world naturally sensed it, so they rushed over early. Moreover, many people had long coveted Jia Lingyao's sheepskin scroll and were just waiting for it. Of course. These martial artists were obviously stronger, and there was no lack of high-level truth-seeking realm cultivators. Since you came out of the ruins, you should have already found the treasure, a sanctimonious old man said coldly. Hand it over and you can live. What if you don't hand it over? Jun Changshao said with interest. Die. The old man's answer was very straightforward. Ha! Jun Changshao laughed. Patriarch. Yi Xingchen let Jia Lingyao go and said with killing intent in his eyes, I'll deal with them. The evil thoughts that controlled his mind were gone, but anger rose in his body. He urgently needed to find someone to vent his anger. Let's finish this quickly. Yes. Bang! Yi Xingchen took a step forward and rushed over like a cannonball. As he approached, he raised his right hand and the sky halberd appeared out of thin air. Die, all of you. Whoosh whoosh. Whoosh whoosh. Under the infusion of the true spirit force and anger, the sky halberd dragged a gorgeous light and pressed down on Wu Tang and the martial artists of the various forces with a sweeping momentum. After breaking through to the peak of the truth-seeking realm, Yi Xingchen's combat strength had increased significantly. Not good. Retreat, retreat, retreat. The middle-aged leader of Wu Tang was shocked. Pucci. Pucci. Wherever the light passed, the Sky Spill world martial artists were cut in half at the waist. Blood and limbs scattered all over the ground. Die! Yi Xingchen continued to wave the sky halberd, turning into the Grim Reaper and crazily harvesting lives. Dozens of powerful Sky Spill world martial artists were killed in a short time. Before they died, they probably would not have thought that they were not waiting for a rabbit but guarding a tree stump to kill a rabbit. Yi Xingchen stood in front of the pile of corpses, the anger on his face still not subsiding. This guy's anger is quite big. Jun Changshao was a little stunned. Ding! Congratulations to the host for dominating the Sky Spill world. Ding! Completion of the main mission, 2%. Damn! Gosheng said in shock, that works? He had only been in this plane for less than 2 hours. How did he become the ruler of the Sky Spill world? The system guessed, the martial artists killed by Yi Xingchen should be the top experts of the Sky Spill world. That's why they met the mission requirements. That's right. The martial artists that appeared this time were all top experts in the Sky Spill world. Especially the middle-aged man. Not only was he the hall master of Wu Tang, but his overall strength was also very strong. As for those sanctimonious old men, they were the upper echelons of the various top sections. Their strength could also be ranked in the pugilistic world. Unfortunately, they were all killed by the angry Yi Xingchen. Not even their names were left. Sigh. Jun Changshao said helplessly, dominating a plane really only gives 1%. God knows how long it will take to reach 100%. The system said, whether it's the previous Scarlet Hell world or the current Sky Spill world, their overall strength is far inferior to the upper realm. Perhaps the next plane is very strong. If the host dominates it, he can directly give 10% or more. Fuck. Jun Changshao said angrily, don't use your power. Chapter 1698. On the Eternal Ship. When Jun Changshao returned with Yi Xingchen, there was an uproar. Did you guys hear? Junior brother Yi went to the Sky Spill domain under orders. He didn't bring back any martial resources, but he brought back a woman. Su Xiaoma stood on a stool in the canteen and described vividly. As expected. As long as he knew something, it would definitely spread in the sect. Su Xiaoma deserved his big mouth. Who's that woman? A disciple asked. You've asked the right question. Su Xiaoma slapped his thigh and said in a low voice, as far as I know, this woman has a close relationship with junior brother Yi. The patriarch and the elders are discussing when to hold their wedding. No way. Senior brother Yi is getting married? Everyone's eyes widened. Other than eldest senior sister, Yi Xingqian was undoubtedly the most arrogant among the core disciples. He didn't even interact with female disciples. Now that he was suddenly getting married, it was unbelievable. Su Xiaoma didn't lie because Jun Changshao was discussing this matter with the sect's higher-ups in the main cabin. Everyone. What do you think? Elder Wei placed the teacup on the table and forced down the tea that was about to spurt out. In terms of relationships, there were two people that gave him a headache. One of them was Yi Xingqian, but he never expected that he would do such a thing after going to the Sky Spill domain. The younger generation would surpass the older generation. The younger generation would surpass the older generation. As for the other person that gave him a headache, it was better not to mention him. Patriarch Ryu Sinan said, as a man, you should be responsible. I agree with their wedding. I agree too, Gong Sunho said. The others echoed and expressed that they had no objections. Okay. Jun Changshao said, pick a good day for them to get married. I object. Yi Xingqian rushed in from outside, the veins on his face bulging. Although he had done something wrong by taking the Taisher essence liquid, he didn't have to marry her. Objection overruled. Jun Changshao said, the wedding will be held in 3 days. Yi Xingqian was so angry that he stormed out of the door and locked himself in his room. The more he thought about it, the more frustrated he got. The more he thought about it, the more vile he got. The female disciples lived in the cabin area. Yao Menjing walked over with fragrant dishes. Seeing that the dishes on the table were untouched, she said, Miss Jia, no matter how important the matter is, you still have to eat. Jia Lingyao leaned against the bed with her hands on her knees. There were 2 streaks of tears on her face, and her eyes were empty and lifeless, as if she had lost her soul. This was the first time this woman had met Yi Xingqian. Even with a sword at her neck, she was still able to maintain her composure. The only thing she could not accept was what had happened in the stone chamber. My innocence is gone, she raised her head, her tears flowing uncontrollably. Choking with sobs, she said, my innocence is gone. Yao Menjing fell silent. Of course, she knew how important it was for a woman to keep her chastity. Senior brother Yi is a responsible man, he will definitely take responsibility for you. Yao Menjing comforted. Creak. Suddenly, the door opened and Yi Xingqian walked in with a dark face. Senior brother Yi, get out. Oh. Yao Menjing left with the cold dishes. Clang. Just as she left, Yi Xingqian drew his sword and placed it on Jia Lingyao's neck, his eyes filled with murderous intent. Kill her and all will be well. Jia Lingyao's eyes were filled with hatred. You bullied me and now you want to kill me. Stop pretending. Yi Xingqian said coldly, you are Empress Lingyao. The so-called treasure and Taisher Yuan energy were all part of your plan. The sword sank a little and cut her skin, causing blood to seep out. Did it hurt? To Jia Lingyao, this pain was nothing compared to what she had experienced before. I am Jia Lingyao, not Empress Lingyao. You're still acting when you're about to die. Yi Xingqian firmly believed that this woman was Empress Lingyao. That was the only reason he had a reason to kill her. Would I have plotted for you to bully me? Would I have plotted for you to kill me repeatedly? There was no fear in Jia Lingyao's eyes, only rising hatred. Yi Xingqian was speechless. Indeed, Empress Lingyao was proficient in scheming. If she was exposed so easily, her methods would be a little clumsy. Aren't you trying to deny what you did before by killing me? Jia Lingyao gritted her teeth. Fine, I won't pester you or make you responsible. I just want to leave this place. She wanted to leave. That was exactly what he wanted. Of course, Yi Xingqian couldn't make the decision. After all, this was eternal and he couldn't tear the universe apart to send her back to Sky Spill World. Miss Jia, are you sure you want to leave? Jun Changshao asked from the seat of honor in a cabin that resembled a hull. Yes. Jia Lingyao nodded. After taking the pills developed by Sun Bukong, her complexion and condition were clearly much better than yesterday. This, Jun Changshao pondered for a moment and said, "All right, I'll send you back to Sky Spill World." Since she didn't want Yi Xingqian to be responsible, he couldn't force it. On the same day, Jun Changshao brought Jia Lingyao out of Eternal and landed in Sky Spill World. Before leaving, he gave her a spatial ring and said, "Miss Jia, my disciple didn't mean to offend you. I hope you can forgive him." Go Sheng had a basic understanding of the situation. After controlling Taishi's origin force, she suddenly lost her mind. It couldn't be blamed on Yi Xingqian. After all, she had no choice at that time. Jia Lingyao's eyes were filled with hatred. I will never forgive him. Jun Changshao was very embarrassed. He turned and flew away. The system said, "It doesn't matter if you forgive him or not. After all, Sky Spill World is just a temporary station for Yi Xingqian. After leaving this time, it will be difficult for them to meet again. Anchor. Set sail." After returning to the Eternal Ship, Jun Changshao issued an order. Swish! Swish! The 11 battleships floating outside Sky Spill World started one after another until their tails spewed out light and merged into the endless starry sky. Yi Xingqian stood in the cabin and looked through the window at the plane that was getting farther and farther away. At this moment, his emotions were extremely complicated. Especially when he recalled the scenes he saw in the stone room, he became more and more confused. Did it happen in the past or in the future? Would he really leave the sect of all times, which he trusted so much, and then get married and have children because of that woman? Impossible. Yi Xingqian said, "It must be a lie." Sky Spill World. Jia Lingyao sat alone on a mountain peak and said hatefully, "Yi Xingqian, I will remember you." After being brought back to Eternal, she already knew that the so-called Pei Anyo was just a fake name. His real name was Yi Xingqian. "I will work hard to cultivate." Jia Lingyao said, "Then I will find you and take revenge." In the ruins, a black-robed man slowly appeared and stood in front of the collapsed stone wall. He muttered to himself, "There are many variables in the past and the future. If Jun Patriarch and his disciple can change it, then they naturally have the ability to change the upper universe." If Jun Changshao was present, he would be able to tell from the voice that this was the mysterious person he had brought back to Eternal and then mysteriously disappeared. It was him. Who was he? Chapter 1699. The matter of the Sky Spill World was over. Looking at Yi Xingqian's trip, it was a pity that he didn't bring any martial arts resources to the sect. In fact, it didn't matter, because a plane that was inferior to the upper realm would definitely not be comparable to Dao stones and immortal stones in terms of resources. Moreover, he had obtained enough first-class fire stones from the Scarlet Hell world, so the fuel could last for a long time. Of course, it wasn't that he didn't gain anything. At least Yi Xingqian had entered the peak of the truth-seeking realm, greatly increasing the strength of the sect. Also, the completion rate of dominating the Sky Spill World increased from 1% to 2%, only 98% away from 100%. Sigh. Jun Changshao took a sip of tea, his face full of wrinkles. Although the main mission had no time limit, dominating a plane gave him 1%. He had to dominate at least 98 planes. Not bad. The system said, "At least you didn't take your disciple to conquer them directly." Helping Euphia restore the prestige of the royal family, dominating the Scarlet Hell world, dealing with the representative top powerhouses, and dominating the Sky Spill world. From these 2 points, it was relatively easy to complete the conditions. Sigh. Jun Changshao shook his head and said, "The road ahead is long." Patriarch. Li Qingyang walked into the cockpit and said, "Junior brother Yi locked himself in the room and hasn't come out for 3 days." Jun Changshao said, "He needs time to calm down." In the cabin, Yi Xingqian stood in front of the window and looked at the endless universe outside. His eyes were sometimes filled with pain, confusion. Jia Lingyao didn't pester him. Everything should be fine, but these days, his mind was getting more and more chaotic. He would even dream of the moment when he was looking for the treasure, of taking the Taisher essence liquid, and then, "I shouldn't have let that woman live." Yi Xingqian blamed his frustration on his soft-heartedness. But in fact, after the problem happened, before the patriarch appeared, he could easily kill Jia Lingyao, but he couldn't do it. Who was to blame? It must be Go Shing's fault. Firstly, he was the patriarch of Yi Xingqian. Secondly, he had always treated the sect as his home and treated himself as his parent. Now that the children made mistakes, the adults had to bear the consequences. Please remember, this is not a scapegoat. In fact, Jun Changshao had also given him compensation, sending Jia Lingyao back to the Heaven Spill realm. He had given him a spatial ring containing 1,000,000 Dao stones, 1,000,000 immortal stones, and various pills. These martial arts resources were nothing to a sect, but to an individual, it was definitely a huge fortune. If Jia Lingyao's talent was not bad, with the help of these resources, her cultivation would definitely soar. If she was lucky, it would not be impossible for her to step into the half-step heavenly fate stage. Yi Xingqian had made a mistake. As the patriarch, Jun Changshao paid for him. Was this matter not handled beautifully? Who could find fault with this matter? A certain reader, I can. Dong dong. Xiao Ziji stood outside the door and said, "Brother Yi, do you want to go to the life and death secret realm together?" Phew. Yi Xingqian took a deep breath, then pushed the door open and walked out. Although it was very irritating, he still had to cultivate. He could not neglect everything because of this matter. Martial Dao. In Night Emperor's heart, it was still irreplaceable. As for marrying that woman in the projection and having children, it was all nonsense. Boom. Boom. In the life and death secret realm, Yi Xingqian vented his anger on the demonic beasts he had created. The more he fought, the crazier he became. An hour later, he stood in place, sweating profusely. Xiao Ziji handed over a towel and said, "Brother Yi, are you okay?" "I'm fine." Yi Xingqian took the towel and put it on his head, saying, "My fellow sect members know about my matter?" "Yes." Xiao Ziji said, "They all know." Crack. Yi Xingqian clenched his fists and said angrily, "Who spread it?" "In the cafeteria." Before it was time to eat, the disciples came early and surrounded Su Xiaoma, asking about Brother Yi. Don't worry. Su Xiaoma said, "You ask one by one, and I'll answer one by one." "Brother." Li Tian squeezed through the crowd and raised his hand, saying, "Did that girl and Brother Yi have sex?" "Good question." Su Xiaoma put one foot on the chair and said, "As far as I know, Yi, boom. Boom." Just as he opened his mouth, the surrounding disciples all flew up and crashed into the wall in various positions. Then, they saw Yi Xingqian walking over, covered in anger. Gulp. Li Tian swallowed his saliva and raised his hand to hit his face. His body flew out and then fell to the ground, pretending to be unconscious. Su Xiaoma calmed down and grinned, "Brother, why did you come out?" Shwa. Yi Xingqian grabbed his collar with one hand and dragged him into the battle room. Interstellar travel was long. Jun Changshao specially opened up a cabin on the battleship for the disciples to spar when they had nothing to do. Today. It came in handy. Boom boom boom. Boom 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 boom. Outside the battle room, Li Tian and the others were eavesdropping. Suddenly, they saw a head protruding from the wall. They were shocked and quickly retreated. Then, they saw various human postures appear on the wall. The scene was spectacular. Creak. After a while, the cabin door opened and Yixingchen walked out with a dark face. After he left, everyone hurriedly looked into the room and saw Brother Su lying on the ground in a U shape. The bumps on his head were piled up like a chain gourd. His eyes were completely narrowed. This was the result of blabbering. At the same time, it taught the other disciples a lesson. Therefore, no one talked about Night Emperor and Jia Lingyao that day. The 11 battleships flew steadily in the universe. They did not discover any new planes for half a month. Jun Changshao, who was sitting in the cockpit, was puzzled. Could it be that there are only a few planes in this area? Beep! Beep! Suddenly, there was a sound from the star map. Jun Changshao hurriedly looked and saw that the area that looked like the fog of war was gradually being explored as the battleships flew. A light spot the size of a fingernail appeared. Patriarch! Shengguan Xinyao said, a new plane has been discovered. Jun Changshao was overjoyed. Finally, another one. However, when they were about to approach, he and his disciples gradually opened their mouths. This was because the plane that appeared in their field of vision was very big. It was at least 10 times bigger than the upper realm. Whoosh! Whoosh! The 11 battleships were still in a state of deceleration. Dozens of streams of light flew out from inside and stood majestically in the universe. The leader was an old man in a Taoist robe. He coldly shouted, "Who are you?" Fuck! Jun Changshao was shocked. Flying out of the plane without using any treasures or tools could only be done by someone who was half a step into the divine secret state. In other words, the dozens of people who appeared were all on par with him. The system said, if you dominate this plane, you might be able to get 10%. Jun Changshao's eyes lit up. Then, he elegantly stood up from his seat and said, I'm from the Tang dynasty of the East. I'm heading to the West to pray to Buddha and seek scriptures. Scram. Alright, goodbye. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. The 11 battleships swiftly turned around and quickly disappeared into the endless universe. I came and I left. Chapter 1700. Dozens of people flew out and they were not inferior to him. In order to avoid conflict, Jun Changshao led the team to turn around and leave. He explained himself, this is not cowardice, this is steadiness. The system said, if the host knows steadiness, there will be no frivolity in the world. Jun Changshao could not be bothered with it. After flying far away from the plane, he ordered the 11 warships to stop. Leaving did not mean leaving. Just like the disciples of the sect of all times, leaving the sect did not mean betrayal or separation. It could also be a temporary departure or a temporary offline. You all wait here. Jun Changshao ordered, I'll go and take a look alone. The plane was so much bigger than the upper realm, and the warriors that came out were so strong. He would definitely find a way to sneak in and take a look. Of course. There must be high-level resources in a high-level world. I'll go with you, Rose of Flowers said. Since the interstellar journey, she had always been on the warship. Her life was boring. Who will take care of the internal affairs when you're gone? Jun Changshao said. Patriarch. Yuan Gongzi said, I'll take care of it. The meticulous patriarch was finally out of the world. Of course, it was not that he was forgotten, but he was responsible for the development of the pill industry, so he rarely returned to the sect. Before Rose of Flowers joined the sect, Yuan Gongzi had been taking care of the internal affairs, and the results were good. The most typical example was Hallmaster Z, who would tear his clothes off at the slightest disagreement, but he had already changed his bad habit. In the entire Spirit Beast Hall, as long as the monsters could transform into human form, they all learned how to wash and sew clothes. The school uniform was valuable, but the price of the beast core was even higher. Deputy hallmasters like Elder Nyo were reluctant to change their school uniforms even if the color was faded. This was frugality. Okay. Jun Changshao said indifferently, after going in, don't cause trouble. Rose of Flowers was speechless. I'm afraid my husband will cause trouble. This newly discovered plane was much bigger than the upper realm in terms of size, so the overall martial arts strength must be higher. With Go Sheng's personality, he would definitely cause trouble, so the purpose of going there was to supervise. It had to be said. This woman understood Go Sheng more and more. Crack! The bottom cabin of Eternal opened. Jun Changshao shook his head and said, the level of this plane is not low. It might be very troublesome to travel through the spatial barrier. You have to be mentally prepared. Yes. Rose of Flowers said. Jun Changshao did not waste any time and directly hugged her in his arms. Gathering his true spirit force, he turned into a ray of light and flew out. He was not taking advantage of the situation. Instead, there was some kind of pressure in the upper layer of the universe. If one was not at the half-step heavenly secret realm, they would die instantly if they were enveloped by it. Hoo-hoo! Hoo-hoo! Along the way, the crushing force madly wreaked havoc. Although it was difficult to break through the solid wall of air, the sound of friction and collision could still be heard. Rose of Flowers pressed her face against Jun Changshao's chest and smiled happily. Of course, the squeezing sound was very scary, but she wasn't afraid at all. Because as long as he was by her side, even if she had to go to hell, so what? Hold on tight. Jun Changshao said, I'm going to increase my speed. At this moment, he had already bypassed the area where the battleship was and came to the other side of the plane. Using the hidden cultivation technique to the extreme, unless the light was seen by the naked eye, it would not be detected by the spiritual sense. Rose of Flowers stretched out her hands and tightly wrapped them around his neck. Whoosh! Under the cover of the true spirit force, the two of them seemed to have turned into meteorites from outer space, dragging hot flames like dog biscuits as they fell. Buzz! From the distance, it could be seen clearly that the moment Jun Changshao touched the plane barrier, visible ripples appeared and spread out in the universe. Caw-caw! Caw-caw-caw! The sound of friction and squeezing was louder than before. Jun Changshao, who was inside, although his hair was not messy, he could feel that the plane barrier was too thick. If he wanted to rush in, he might need to spend some energy. If he was alone, he could do it without any worries. But with Rose of Flowers in his arms, the first thing he had to do was to hug her tightly and protect her with a part of his strength to prevent any accidents. Am I holding you back? Shut up. Rose of Flowers did not speak. Whoosh! Whoosh! The true spirit force erupted wildly, as if it had turned into a drill bit and drilled in. Bang! Not long after, there was an explosion. Jun Changshao held Rose of Flowers and flew through the sky under the protection of the hard enchantment. The traces left behind were no different from a meteorite falling. Boom! In the open area, the ground caved in. Whoosh whoosh! Billowing smoke rose, and the surrounding temperature rose sharply. Thud! Jun Changshao walked out of the smoke and said, I used too much force and didn't stop. After saying that, he let go of Rose of Flowers and let her jump down by herself. However, the woman was still holding on to his neck and had no intention of leaving. Come down. Oh! Rose of Flowers then reluctantly jumped down. Looking at the huge pit behind her, she said, with such a big movement, they must have noticed. Jun Changshao did not care. At this moment, he closed his eyes and felt the pure heaven and earth attributes. The system said, at least 20 times stronger than the upper realm. TSK. Jun Changshao said, no wonder there are so many half-step divine secrets. In fact, entering the divine secrets relied on chance and comprehension. However, in a world with strong heaven and earth attributes, the overall cultivation of the martial artists was high, and the probability of such a level of powerhouse was naturally high. For example, in the upper realm, the number of people at the peak of the truth-seeking realm was about 3 digits. Only Gongsun Ruoli and the demon ancestor were known to be half-step. What if there were thousands or tens of thousands of people at the peak? Whoosh! Whoosh! Just as Jun Changshao was feeling the heaven and earth attributes, dense and gorgeous streams of light flew over from the blue sky, and then, suspended above him, surrounding him in 3 circles. Cutting through the sky, the momentum was great. As long as one was not blind or deaf, who could not see or hear? Jun Changshao opened his eyes, and the expression on his face was a little awkward. He originally planned to sneak in, but in the end, he used too much strength to break through the space barrier, causing too much of a commotion, and was caught red-handed. Who are you? It was the old man in a Taoist robe who blocked the way outside the universe. He glared and said, "How dare you trespass into the Imperial Celestial Realm?" Imperial Celestial Realm? This name was quite arrogant. Everyone. Jun Changshao cupped his fists and said, "I came from the Tang of the East, heading to you again." Before he could finish, the old man immediately recognized him, and the anger on his face intensified. Powerful attributes instantly burst out from his body, and his Taoist robe was about to burst. Whoosh whoosh. Whoosh whoosh. The martial artists in the sky also released their cultivation, and the atmosphere instantly became murderous. I told you to get lost, but you sneaked in. What does this mean? That's right, you're deliberately looking for trouble. Brat! The old man in a Taoist robe said coldly, I've already given you a chance. Now that you insist on barging in, leave your body here and report to the netherworld. I'll carry you. Jun Changshao walked in front of rows of flowers to protect her, took out the immortal sword of Zenith, and said, My life, the king of hell does not dare to take. I'm very puzzled. The system ridiculed at an inappropriate time, there's also the netherworld in the high martial arts plane. Chapter 1701. Jun Changshao entered the Imperial Celestial World just to see how powerful and prosperous a bigger plane was. However, not only did they not welcome him, they even wanted to attack him. Fine. I'll play with you until the end. During this period of time, he had passed by 2 planes that were not very strong. Jun Changshao did not show off much. There were many experts here, he should be able to fight to his heart's content. Since transmigrating, Gosheng had completely integrated into the world of martial arts. His blood was filled with battle lust. If not for the restriction of his identity as the Sect master, he would have become a wanderer who challenged all the heroes in the world. You dare to show your weapon? The old man in the Taoist robe sneered. You're courting death. Humph. The middle-aged martial artist standing at the side raised his hand and took out a long spear engraved with strange patterns. He said, I'll take care of this kid. Battle pattern tiger racing spear. Everyone's eyes were filled with envy. Their cultivation levels were similar. If they wanted to win, they could only rely on equipment. Therefore, whoever had something good would definitely be envied. Not a bad spear. Jun Changshao commented. He had obtained many from the system store. Moreover, he had a master blacksmith like Fan Yezi. In terms of weapons, he still had some appreciation. Bah! The system said, the spearhead is glowing red. You can see it with the naked eye. Will you die if you don't fart? I just don't want to see the host pretending to be a professional here. Scram! Whoosh! While Jun Changshao and the system bickered, the middle-aged martial artist swung his spear down. Powerful attributes wrapped in layers of power burst out with a whoosh. The surrounding area was instantly stirred up. As a half-step divine secret, if the special effects of his attacks were not destructive, he would be embarrassed to greet others. Get out of the way. Jun Changshao said. These words were unnecessary because rows of flowers had already retreated, leaving enough space for him to fight. As the empress of the soul race, she had experienced countless battles. Many things did not need to be said. One look, one action, and even the atmosphere would be immediately understood. The main reason was that she had always kept a low profile in the sect of all times. She did not seem to exist. If she left Jun Changshao, she would definitely be like a different person. To put it bluntly, Rose of Flowers was willing to be a woman with little presence in front of Go Sheng. But that didn't mean that she didn't have a personality or ability. What she lacked was nothing more than an opportunity. What she lacked was nothing more than an individual plot like Yixingqian's to fill in and mold her. Hoo. The power of a river that could split heaven and earth pressed down from above. Feeling the powerful energy, Jun Changxiao's eyes became even more heated. The desire to fight with the strong poured into his sea of consciousness and stimulated every nerve in his body. Come. Jun Changxiao raised his sword and said, "Fight." Hoo. At that moment, a powerful sword aura gushed out from his body. His entire body became incomparably sharp, and his style changed from cartoonish to surreal. Don't you see that the waters of the Yellow River come from the heavens and flow into the sea? Don't you see, the bright mirror in the hall grieves with white hair, like black silk in the morning, like snow in the evening? You should enjoy life to the fullest. Don't let your golden goblet face the moon with nothing. Whoosh! After finishing Li Taibai's song, Jun Changxiao swung his immortal sword from bottom to top, bursting with a dazzling and powerful sword aura. The system muttered, "Sure enough, when the protagonist fights with the enemy, no matter how complicated it is, the attacking power must follow the law of pause to give him time to cast his ultimate move." Ka. The space was mercilessly torn apart, and the sword aura traveled for tens of thousands of miles. This sword. It was shocking. Although Jun Changxiao was usually very despicable, when he was really facing a strong opponent, he was absolutely unimaginable when he was serious. Hoo. The dazzling sword aura rushed up like a tidal wave, shocking the strong people of the imperial celestial world. This person's weapon was extraordinary. If Jun Changxiao knew what they were thinking, he would definitely vomit blood. In order to add special effects, to add atmosphere, to add scene, I deliberately recited a poem to cast my ultimate move. In the end, it was all on the weapon. Hoo. The powerful force that recovered from the law of pause seemed to have turned into a roaring dragon and blasted toward the incoming sword aura. Heaven and earth lost their color and space collapsed. The momentum was so great that it was difficult for the artist to cry on the spot. The comic copyright is under negotiation. The joke now may come true in the future. The middle-aged man's face was very solemn. In terms of momentum, the power gathered by the battle-pattern spear of the racing tiger was not weaker than the sword aura formed by the immortal sword, but he felt that, boom. At this moment, the two forces violently collided in midair. The violent force and the violent sword aura surged in all directions. Wherever they passed, space was either compressed and collapsed or torn into pieces. If this strong confrontation was in the upper realm, it would definitely shock the world and be indelible. Of course. It was still shocking in the imperial celestial world. The best proof of this point was that the local strong people looked at the collapse of the collision area with disbelief gradually appearing on their faces. They knew that Jun Changxiao was strong when he forcibly broke the space barrier and merged with the imperial celestial world, but when they saw him in action, they realized that this person was extraordinary. That's right. If he didn't have the ability, he wouldn't have dared to cause trouble openly. Whoosh. In midair, the two forces were still erupting, and the sound produced was like space crying. The crowd couldn't care less about the collapse of heaven and earth and the explosion of energy. They released their spiritual senses and merged it with them until they saw Jun Changxiao standing in front of the middle-aged man with a 3-foot-long sword on his neck. Their expressions were all stiff. Especially, the battle pattern spear of the racing tiger was broken. Sorry. Jun Changxiao's hair was not messed up, and his tone was calm. Your weapon is good, but it's still not mature enough. The middle-aged man's face was filled with anger, but his eyes were filled with frustration. As someone who experienced it, in the short collision just now, he could feel that his power was dissolved, allowing the opponent to approach and break his weapon in an instant. Thank you. Thank you for not killing me. Although the middle-aged martial artist didn't want to admit it, in fact, if this young man wanted to kill him, he would have been dead by now. Clang! Jun Changxiao sheathed his sword and cupped his fists. Thank you for letting me win. His move was earth-shattering, and he ended it with ease. It was simply impeccable. The faces of the experts were very ugly. Li Yanchang, who was quite famous in the Imperial Celestial world, was defeated in a single blow. Even his treasured battle pattern tiger spear was cut in half. An expert. An absolute expert. The old man in a Taoist robe and the others became vigilant. Everyone. Jun Changxiao landed lightly in mid-air, holding the ultimate immortal sword in front of him. He casually put his hands on the hilt and said, I'm passing by this treasure place and only want to stay for the night. I have no ill intentions. Please make an exception. Just now, he didn't go too far. Now, he was polite in his speech and behavior. No one could find fault with him. You have a deep understanding of swordsmanship. A man in black landed, holding a heavy giant sword in front of him, and said, I'd like to learn from you. Sword demon, Gong Baiyu. When did he come? He must have felt the burst of sword energy just now. Interesting. The martial artists of the Imperial Celestial world whispered. Jun Changxiao was depressed. He liked to fight, but a fight was enough. If he fought endlessly with the martial artists here, how could he travel to this plane that was more powerful than the upper realm? Sure. Jun Changxiao said, the loser will give the prize. If you really want to fight, I'll accompany you to the end. But with so many special effects, you must make up for it with materials. This was the rule of the Jianghu. Chapter 1702. Jun Changxiao was not willing to fight all the time since fighting was physically and spiritually exhausting. He would be more than willing to pay more. There was a saying that money could make a dog grind millstones. It was true. Of course, Jun Changxiao was not trying to cheat money. Since someone wanted to spar with him, shouldn't he charge them some money? What's the wager? Gong Baiyu asked. Whoever loses will pay. I don't have money. Judging from the way he addressed Gong Baiyu as sword demon, he must be like Zhou Hong, obsessed with swordsmanship. He must not have much money. You can give me martial arts resources if you don't have money. Jun Changxiao regarded money as dirt and spiritual stones as treasures. A powerhouse snorted. So you're saying that we Imperial Realm martial artists will definitely lose if we fight with you? Of course not. Jun Changxiao waved his hand and took out 100,000 immortal stones from his space ring. This is my wager. Whoever wins will take it. Gosheng rarely took out his immortal stones except for giving Jia Lingyao 1,000,000 immortal stones. It seemed that he really wanted to be a sparring partner today. Humph. That powerhouse said disdainfully, you have the nerve to use this second-class spiritual stone as a wager? Jun Changxiao was speechless, but he was overjoyed inside. The highest grade immortal stones in the upper world were only second class here. That meant there were still first class, supreme class, saint class, and divine class. The system said, you think too much. Okay. Jun Changxiao raised his sword and said, this sword will belong to the one who defeats me. After defeating Li Yanchang, all the martial artists had their eyes on the ultimate immortal sword, so he decided to use it as a wager. Sure enough. Everyone's eyes lit up. The war-pattern tiger spear was one of the top weapons in the Imperial realm, but it was easily broken. It meant that his weapon was of a very high level. If he had it, he would be like a tiger that had grown wings. For these powerhouses, the temptation of martial arts resources was far less than that of treasures and equipment. Are you sure? Gong Baiyu asked. Others only wanted the body of the ultimate immortal sword, but he wanted the soul. I'm sure. Jun Changshao said seriously. However, he hurriedly added, Sir, please take out a prize of equal value to this sword. If I take the divine artifact and you take the brick, that won't work. Gong Baiyu fell into a short silence, then casually tossed over a spatial ring and said, There are millions of spiritual stones inside. If you can beat me, it's yours. Sword cultivators did not need such martial arts resources, so they had to slowly accumulate them over thousands of years. Wait? Jun Changxiao's spiritual senses entered the space ring. Just as he approached the mountain of spirit stones, he immediately felt an extremely strong heaven and earth attribute. It smells so good. It's several dozen times stronger than immortal stones, how could it not be fragrant? Jun Changxiao was overjoyed. With such powerful martial arts resources, if the disciples were to absorb them, the speed of their breakthroughs would definitely be greatly increased. Here. I came to the right place. All right. Let's begin. Jun Changxiao lowered his head. When he looked up again, he had already tied the headscarf with the words, the strongest sparring partner in history, engraved on it. All the martial artists were speechless. The system roared, the serious wind that was brewed with great difficulty has been turned into a sand sculpture wind by this guy again. Wind. Wind whistled. Two people stood in the open field. They were about 30 meters away from each other. They did not speak, and the atmosphere was particularly cold and harsh. Aha! A martial artist yawned. The other martial artists were either trimming their nails or sitting together and chatting. Under such a serious background, they were so casual. Jun Changxiao and Gong Baiyu had been standing in the open field for 4 hours, but they still did not make a move. Back then, a martial artist recalled the past and said, Master asked me whether I should practice martial arts or sword arts. I decisively chose martial arts because a battle between sword cultivators was too damn boring. Sigh. Someone said, if I had known, I would have challenged him first. Sword cultivators do not compete with spiritual energy. The old man in the Taoist robe said in a low voice, if I'm not wrong, their sword wills should have fought hundreds of rounds in the air. Everyone became serious. Phew. Phew. Intermittent snoring came. Jun Changxiao's head slowly fell down, and there were bubbles at the tip of his nose. The martial artists of the Imperial Celestial Realm lined up neatly and roared, he's asleep. Clang! At this moment, Gong Baiyu patted the body of the sword with one hand. With a buzz, the huge sword was unsheathed, and an extremely heavy aura spread out in an instant. Thud! He strode forward and put his palms on the hilt of the sword, saying, a heavy sword without a sharp edge. Great craftsmanship is useless. Whoosh! Whoosh! In an instant, the dust under his feet flew up, and the space behind him quickly twisted into a vortex. Heavy sword aura erupted from the vortex and gradually enveloped the heavy sword. It looked extremely magnificent. Swords were mainly sharp. However, the sword move that Gong Baiyu performed revealed a steady aura, as if it was not a sword, but a saber that could destroy the world. Whoosh! The huge sword with heavy aura shot out. Because it was close to the ground, it immediately rolled up the grass and the dust. Looking from afar, it covered the sky and the sun. He made a move. This aura. As expected of the sword devil. Everyone was amazed. However, when they looked at Jun Changxiao, they found that he was still lowering his head, and the expression on his face became interesting. Brother. Are you here to fight or to sleep? Whoosh! Whoosh! The huge sword shot out, and a deep and long trench appeared on the ground where it passed. Jun Changshao was still sleepy, but when the violent and heavy sword tip pressed down, he instantly woke up. The supreme celestial sword that was inserted under his feet was placed in front of him, and his eyes were filled with a rare seriousness and solemnity. Ding! At the same time, the sword tip of the huge sword and the celestial sword collided violently, and dazzling electric sparks erupted. Thump! 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 The powerful impact forced Jun Changshao to step back, but his serious eyes flashed with excitement, and the blood in his body seemed to be burning. This guy! He is much stronger than the previous one. Clang! He suddenly waved the supreme celestial sword, and the huge sword flew out together with it. Zzz. Jun Changshao supported himself with one hand on the ground, and his body slid back dozens of feet due to inertia. After he stabilized himself, he suddenly exerted force in his legs, and his whole body suddenly rushed forward. The whole process was like a flying dragon. Start and stop, right like a thunderstorm. Swish swish. Jun Changshao rushed to the front of Gong Baiyu and leaped into the air, shouting, "Sword! 10,000 swords become one!" Hoo! The moment Jun Changshao grabbed the sword hilt, his body was quickly enveloped by the sword qi, turning into a white light that could penetrate the heavens and the earth. Attack! Attack! It was done smoothly in one go. Whoosh! In the blink of an eye, the area where Gong Baiyu was standing was filled with howling winds and dust. When everything calmed down, Jun Changshao was standing 10 feet behind him with the utmost perfection celestial sword still in his hand. The warriors of the Imperial Celestial Realm were dumbfounded. The whole process seemed to take a long time to describe, but it actually happened in the blink of an eye. It's too fast. I didn't see it clearly at all. At this moment, the sharp eyes of the crowd noticed that a few strands of hair in front of Gong Baiyu's forehead fell off. They saw him smile bitterly and said, "I lost. You let me win." Jun Changshao kept his sword with a calm expression. As for the space ring that Gong Baiyu gave in advance, he naturally accepted it with a clear conscience. Swish! As soon as the battle ended, a burly middle-aged man landed, took out something like a flower ring, and said, "This is the best soul ring of the Imperial Celestial Realm, worth 1,000,000 first-class spirit stones. Can I use it as a prize?" Jun Changshao was speechless. The thing that the other party took out looked good, but compared to a first-class spirit stone. Wait! Why is that woman in a daze? Husband. Rows of Flowers said emotionally, "The aura of this soul ring is the same as the soul power of the Soul Clan." You're tuning into the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.